I open the joint meeting and call the City Council meeting to order.
I call the parish meeting to order.
We welcome you to a special joint meeting of the Lafayette City Council and the Lafayette Parish Council. As presiding officer and chair, I would like to announce the following. This is a public hearing. To address the council on any item on this agenda, please fill out the blue form or call in to 337-291-8428. That's 337-291-8428. To submit your information to the clerk prior to the call of the agenda item, or you will not be given the opportunity to speak. Staff assistant is available if needed. Item for submission to the council should be handed to the council clerk, Ms. Veronica Williams, seated to my left in the middle. Well, she's not in the middle today. When addressing the council, state your name and title for the official record. The 5-minute rule will be in effect. No debating or confrontational statements will be allowed. The front row to my left is for media only. Food and drinks are not allowed in the auditorium. Please silence all phones and electronic devices. Meeting procedures are by resolutions and not by Robert Rules of Order. All documents with reference to meetings can be found on the LCG website. And finally, the council encourages your involvement in boards or commissions. If interested, call 337-291-8800. That's 291-8800. Announcement. If you call 337-291-8428 prior to reading the item, you will be contacted to speak during the public comment portion of the agenda item for which you signed up to speak. This is a special joint meeting of the Lafayette Parish Council and the Lafayette City Council. At times during the meeting, I will defer to the Parish Council Chair to preside over the Parish Council matters. I do not have any Council Chair announcement at this time. I'd like to recognize the Mayor President, Mr. Guillory, or his rep, for the executive report. Yes, sir.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it. It's an executive report. Okay. All right, so for the executive report for the joint meeting, I have nothing to announce except the Police Chief Search Committee. I remember we spoke about it last city council meeting, but being that we have both councils, I felt it was appropriate to give that information to you or an update to you. I'm very pleased to announce the committee that we have so far, which is purposefully chaired by a civilian, Mark Romero. We also have Mr. Pat McGee, who will serve on the search committee, Judge Jules Edwards, Sheriff Mark Garber, Interim Chief of Police Scott Morgan, who was here earlier. There he is, Chief. Councilwoman Liz Hebert, thank you, and Councilman A.B. Rubin. So I appreciate your service, and I appreciate these men and women who have volunteered their time, continue to volunteer their time to make sure that we do our due diligence and the best we can to pick the best chief of police as we go forward. So that's all I have, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate the time. It's an honor to serve with each of you.
Thank you. Ms. Cook, yeah. Okay, Ms. Cook.
Hit your button again.
Press the speak, just get it.
You good?
Okay, thank you. Actually, Mayor, I have a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Actually, it's kind of a little quick discussion with a question involved. In light of the ordinance that was just presented at the Parish Council related to the 150 of CREATE money going to parish parks, I'm actually here to ask for some CREATE money to be used for the Hyman Performing Arts Center, to keep it open for these small businesses to have their events. And let me tell you why. And I understand what you were doing, I really do, but I'm thinking there's another way we can do this. The last meeting, we fought for small businesses to keep them open, and this is exactly what these people are. These are small businesses. With this CREATE funds could be used to help defray some of the additional costs brought on by the laying off of the Hyman Center staff, and then some of the safe opening restriction requirements that are needed. And so I'm asking if you can get the staff of the Hyman Center back for the next 21 events so that we can use that staff that knows what they're doing already. We can have the 21 events, which are events that bring in revenue, something, in fact, to the tune of about a quarter of their budget. The dancing studios provide about a quarter of their budget. So it's not a small amount, it's a substantial amount. And if the CREATE funds could possibly help with the cleaning and sanitizing of the facility, as well as any extra expense outside of their normal fees. Like I know that some of the staffing, if we don't get our staff back, some of the security guards were going to be police officers, and or the piping, draping was going to be another company vendor that may come in that may charge more. So if we could somehow allow these studios, these small businesses, to do their events, 21 of them, at the center, and I understand that there's still a 50%, I think, capacity restriction at this point, and they're willing to work that out with themselves. And there was some question as to whether or not we were able to open the center, because it was tagged, or it was identified as a music hall, what else? Something else, music and, it wasn't an entertainment venue, but it was a music hall. And music halls were not allowed to be open. And I thought it was more of an event center, because we have all kind of events that go there. So in light of that, I called the governor's office, and we were told that basically we can open the Hyman Center for dance reviews, for these dance recitals. They can be open as long as there's not a live singing performance. There's no live music. It's all recorded. So we could open those for those 21 events, and get that revenue, and also provide other businesses besides these small businesses. You have flower shops. You have printing shops that are involved in this. You have lighting technicians. You have stage managers. You have, restaurants. There's a lot of, revenue that's also brought in to help other businesses as well, that we could also, give them a little bit of source of revenue. So I guess I don't expect you to give me a yes or no at this point, but I would like you to please consider, maybe by Friday, a yes or no, if you could. Consider maybe letting us know if there's a way that we could work something out with those CREATE funds. We are talking about maybe a possible ordinance to make that happen if we can do it. And I don't know if you can even bring the employees back. I mean, I'm not sure how that works. If they were laid off, I'm not really sure how that would work. But I really am just asking if we could please look at that again, so that we can let these businesses have their events. And then, what's happening in September and October? Nothing at the Hyman Center, because Broadway is dark, so there's nothing. So we could close them, make up for that, make up for it maybe there. And then, while I've also got your ear, I'm just putting a plug in for the rec centers as well, that we look at some of those as well, trying to keep some of those open. I had a meeting today about keeping some of the swimming pools open and having a private company come in and doing that. So there's ways that we can maybe work this, but I am putting the plug in for those as well. And again, maybe look at those centers again in September, once school starts. Maybe they go a little quieter then. So I just don't know if the timing is right to shut these things down at this point. And if you would please look at it just one more time and see if we can maybe make something work. So.
Well,
That's all I got.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Councilwoman, you always have my ear, phone call away. But I appreciate that. It's a good idea. I think we should have further discussion on it. I definitely welcome your colleagues to opine. I have a few questions on that too. When I took office, there were a lot of questions surrounding CREATE and the obligations that in the past that were made that, quite frankly, are a little uncertain. And I'd hate to spend money that was promised to other entities or other businesses or other projects that were made, commitments that were made prior to me taking office that might put us in a bind here in the city and the parish. Also, do you know how many? You said it was 21 studios, correct? 21. And how much money would you like us to take out of CREATE?
I'm still waiting to hear back from Brian McGrath to see what the extra cost would be. So I don't have a number, but I'd love to work with you and to get a number and to see if that's. And I had asked Lori, I don't even know what's in the CREATE account right now, 800 something. I mean, I'm not sure what's in there.
It's over 800.
I'm sorry, Ms. Cook, I thought I replied to your email. Maybe I didn't hit send, but there is about 500,000 that is unbudgeted at this time that's available, fund balance. And that's a parish-wide millage. So I'm not sure, if the parish council has to vote on that, but
I'm sure they will, but we've helped them out in the past, right, guys? No comment?
Okay, I think, well, budget's coming up. Let's strike a deal in front of everybody. That's good.
And
Transparency.
The ordinance that was approved earlier today did not take additional money from Create. It was already in there in recreation. It just didn't have the name of the parks by it. So all the Councilman Nakhan did was add the name of the parks by it, so that way it was readily identifiable to make sure that it was spent at each of those appropriate parks. But it was already budgeted there.
Right, I remember that. That was done before the new council came in.
Yes, ma'am.
Correct.
Councilwoman, and just so I understand clearly, you're asking, and I appreciate this conversation, because this is what we need to do, and we need to do it in the open. Is it your suggestion that we take the money to pay the studios directly their costs, or you're saying that you just...
The Hyman Center, the
Yeah.
studios are still going to pay their costs, like they had contracted to do. I'm just looking for some help from this Create Fund to all the additional, the cleaning, all the additional things because of the situation we're in.
No, your heart's in the right place. I appreciate that. Is any other council members, parish, any thoughts on this? I think it's a very reasonable suggestion.
Well, she still have the floor.
Oh, I'll give it to Josh. Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Carson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this is, Ms. Cook and I spoke a little bit today. You and I spoke last week about this, and I certainly appreciate the steps that you've already taken to work with the dance companies that have already signed contracts and everything like that. I would like to see us find some way, whether it's Create or another avenue, so that these dance companies that signed contracts with the Hyman Center 4 months ago, that we can fulfill those contracts, because a lot of them have already expended thousands of dollars. I know parents have spent thousands of dollars on costume rentals, everything like that. Yes, for Broadway, different shows that are no longer happening, sure, it makes sense that we close the Hyman Center as a cost-saving measure. But for some of these small businesses, like Councilwoman Cook said, we spent hours last week discussing how do we preserve small businesses. If we make dance companies that have already spent thousands of dollars planning and preparing for this have to refund all of that money, we're going to see some of these mom and pop shop dance companies, and even some of the larger companies that are out there, go under because they don't have that kind of revenue to float those costs. And there are no other options, right? The ACA is all booked, to my knowledge. Angel Hall are having trouble booking there, and so this is one of the last options. So to open up, but say, well, you have to incur all these extra expenses, that just might not be doable. So I'd like to see what that dollar amount is for the dance companies, but if we can use some of that money to help offset the additional cost of opening and operating during this pandemic, that's certainly something I'd like to pursue.
So why don't we find out, I can't tell you how much I appreciate this conversation. Why don't we find out what the cost is, and we'll go from there. And I think that this is a very, like I said, very reasonable idea. It definitely feeds into cultural advancement, tourism, recreation, entertainment. So I feel like it would satisfy the intent behind the legislation. So I think we should look into it. Thank you for bringing it up. Thank you. And thank you, Council. Are there any other opinions from the council?
Mr. Andy Nakhan?
Mayor President Gilroy, it's my understanding that there never was an intent at this point to cancel the reviews. Am I correct in saying that?
Oh, that's correct. We've been working with, well, I know Hollison, he's back there. He's been working weeks now to try to make this happen.
Correct. And I know that the dance people I've talked with are very excited about the facts that the reviews are going forward. And I realize that this is going to be a big boost for the restaurants, the floors, and all these other people involved that really feed into this, the lighting special, et cetera. But I think what our focus needs to be on with this money is to basically fulfill the contract, period.
Fair enough.
If we can fulfill the contract without any major extra expenses for these dance schools, it'll help them all out, because their expenses are already fixed. But if we add additional to that, it would help them out, I know, because there are a lot of money There's a lot of money that's put out for these. Having had 30-plus years' experience with 3 girls who all danced, I know it's a big project for them. But I think our focus really needs to be not so much on giving money to the dance schools, but paying our side of it at the Hyman Center. And I think that would be important to enhance their abilities to put the reviews on. You know, that would be a plus. And that's all I think we need to look at hard at that.
So I think,
Thank you for your time, sir.
no, thank you. And again, thank you for the conversation. So I'll direct to the first question to Councilwoman Cook. So I believe I think the intent behind your suggestion is to alleviate the extra costs that would go into these dance studios. They didn't ask for this pandemic. They didn't ask to be shut down. They didn't ask to be able to maneuver around the capacity requirements. You know, just on an additional note, some relief. One of the ways we're working with the dance studios is due to the capacity constraints from the emergency declaration from the governor. It might require them to do 2 or more shows. So there's some wiggle room there on the fees that I've already agreed to waive, if that's the case. So that would help them out financially. But, you know, I think this is a very fair suggestion. I think it falls within the intent of CREATE as well. I wasn't in office when it was passed, but you know, it's our duty, as we all took an oath, to satisfy the spirit of the law, even if we disagreed with it. And I feel like that would be healthy. So again, I invite everyone's concern. If you can't think of something right now, just like I can't give an answer right now, why don't we find out the additional costs. We'll go from there. I'll send a report out to you guys, and KTC over there will do a public records check, and everybody will know. I see you over there.
Mr. Rubin.
I say that in love.
Hey, I have one question, Councilman Cook. When will we need to move on this? When are they planning on doing their recitals?
Soon, yeah.
That was my Friday deadline. Yeah, we're kind of in a time crunch at this point, so yeah.
So, I mean, we need to be,
And for what it's worth, we also, you know, there's a conversation about it today that went to a place where, Mayor, you might be interested in, for a group of citizens actually forming a Friends of the Hyman Center kind of thing, and basically sponsorships. And I know we talk about trying to maybe privatize some of these things and/or partnerships. And so if nothing else, this definitely started that conversation with a lot of people very interested in, yeah, you know, we want to do that because we want to make sure that we have a space to do, because that's the Hyman Center is the only place in town. I mean, that's our one stop, I mean, for these kind of performances. So, you know, they want to secure it, and so they're willing to talk about that stuff. So, you know, so for whatever reason, we could say that this bad thing happened, but something good might come out of it. But if we can just get them through this series of shows, I really think that they would be, you know, we have a better shot of maybe working some kind of partnership out in good faith.
I think that statement is very true. You know, we got to fulfill our part. You know, this is really good, and I think there's a lot of good that can come from it. I agree with that. So if this situation brought anything to us, it brought the notion that we have to do something different. We all want to save the Hyman. We all want to save the nature station. We all want to save the science museum. All these things, these are great jewels that our wonderful parish has, you know. But we got to do something different to be able to fund it. And I think we're seeing the interest and the demand from the private side. The petition, the outcry, the town hall we did the other day, for anyone in attendance that joined us, thank you. That's why we do it, so we can hear. But public-private partnerships, they work. You know, associations, you see that in youth athletics a lot. While we may own the rec center, for example, there's youth athletic associations across our city that help fund and operate some of the programs that we enjoy. We can use those same models to keep these programs, to keep these facilities up and running. We all want to enrich or continue to promote the enrichment of our arts and our culture. We just have to do it a little differently, because bottom line is the economic situation we have, from the price of oil to the public health emergency that created an economic emergency, all that doesn't mean no permanently. It just means we have to do something different. So, and that's what you're doing, Councilwoman. You're saying do something. You're telling me do something different. And hey, look, I'm human. I don't know everything. That was a great suggestion. So, and please keep them coming. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Cook? You done? Okay. So I see no more comments, so let's move on.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am?
someone, Marshall Broussard, if they could step forward, I just need to speak with them momentarily. They signed in on the comments from the public, and just to let the public know, the chairs has decided to put that item back on the next agenda, and we will not have call-ins because the percentage of participation in the auditorium will be increased.
Okay. Mr. Simon?
Marshall
the gen-
Broussard,
Mr. Broussard?
he just needs to come and I could explain the card. And you could move forward, Mr. Chair, with the meeting.
Yeah, I can still, okay, yeah, all right. Resolutions. This is a public hearing, and blue sheets are available for anyone wishing to address the councils. The 5-minute rule does apply. Cindy, please read item number 3.
Joint Resolution 12-2020, a joint resolution of the Lafayette City Council and the Lafayette Parish Council designating the Daily Advertiser as the official journal for the Lafayette City-Parish Consolidated Government for 1 year commencing July 1st, 2020.
Okay, I need a motion and a second from the city council. Motion by Mr. Andy Nakane, second by Ms. Nanette Cook.
Okay, I need a motion by the parish council. First and a second, got a motion by Councilman Tabor and second by Councilman Carlson.
Any council discussion? I see none. Ms. Williams, any blue, any public comments? Okay, I need a vote from each council to adopt the resolution.
District 1 for the city,
Yes?
City District 2,
Yes.
City District 3,
Yes.
City District 4,
Yes.
City District 5,
Yes.
Parish District 1,
Yes.
Parish District 2,
Yes.
Parish District 3, Parish District 4,
Yes.
Parish District 5. The motion to adopt from the city council is approved. The motion to adopt from the parish council is approved.
Okay, Cindy, please read item 4.
Joint Resolution 13-2020, a joint resolution of the Lafayette City Council and the Lafayette Parish Council authorizing the non-warranty cash sale of the property at 144 East Cypress Street by public bid pursuant to Louisiana Revised Statute 472201 et sec.
Motion and second from city council. Motion by Mr. Glenn Lazar, second by Ms. Liz Hebert.
Need a motion from the parish. So moved. Got a motion by Councilman A.B. Rubin and a second by Councilman Goodall.
Any council discussion? I see none. Ms. Williams, any public comments?
No, sir.
Vote from each council to adopt the resolution.
City District 2,
Yes.
City District 3,
Yes.
City District 4,
Yes.
City District 5,
Yes.
City District 1,
Yes.
Parish District 2,
Yes.
Parish District 3,
Yes.
Parish District 4,
Yes.
Parish District 5, Parish District 1. The motion to adopt from the city council is approved. The motion to adopt from the parish council is approved.
Okay, Ms. Cindy, okay, reports and discussion item, number 5, please.
Drainage update.
Okay, Ms. Cook, like you have the floor, please.
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, thank you all for letting me put this on the agenda. I have three groups of speakers that are going to speak tonight, and I wanted to put this on the agenda tonight so that we could get an update on some drainage initiatives in our parish and in the surrounding parishes. Unfortunately, we're in hurricane season, and so it is probably, maybe we're a little day late and a dollar short at this point, but we are updating so that we kind of know what is going on, so that hopefully we can leave here tonight with a little more confidence of what is being done with our drainage in the area. I wanted to bring all these presenters together because they all touch on a little bit of a different area, a little different aspect of our drainage and our watershed initiative, because it's not, I want everyone to understand, and it's not, our drainage is not just Lafayette. And I think we all know that. We've talked about that so much. But I want to really reiterate that it is so much a bigger picture than just Lafayette Parish. And so by inviting these people in, I wanted to get 3 different perspectives on what we're looking at, what is being talked about, and then also what is actually being done. So I told them they each had an hour. I'm just kidding. I told them they each had about 10 minutes, and we're going to go one speaker at a time. We're going to go through all 3 speakers, and at the end, if there are, I guess, any call-ins or any questions, we'll go from there. So The first speakers up are going to be Dave Dixon and Harold Scheffler. These are two volunteers who have taken their time to provide some insight and wisdom based on their years of traveling up and down the waterways. I've asked them to come to talk tonight and get about a couple of ideas and things that they're working on, ways to help with the watershed initiative. So thank you guys so much for coming.
Thank you for the opportunity, and it's very timely with a tropical storm sitting in the Gulf. And
Not to bring that up.
I looked at 4 computer models, and all 4 of them put it between Lafayette and Beaumont. So hopefully they're not right. One thing on the positive side, across Texas and northern Mexico, we have a dry air component, which may lessen the rain event. But anyway, Nanette asked to talk about what's happening up, and I'm going to be very brief on that because Lafayette has its own special issues and problems. The problems with the water coming and putting it all together started with the levees that were built in 1935. And when they built the levees, the water that traditionally drained from Alexandria to St. Landry, Opelousas area, all went into the Chapelizod River through Bahia Catawba. That was closed with the levee. And when that happened, that forced the water through the Bahia Teche and the Vermilion. Now, Bahia Catawba is very large by comparison. The Teche is 700 square feet. The Vermilion is about 400 square feet where it starts, and Bahia Catawba is 2,000 square feet. So it cannot handle it and doesn't handle it. And to deal with it, we need to put the water back into as much as we can, into the Chapelizod River and the basin. The basin takes it, if the water's not too high, and it goes into Henderson through the Catawba gates, and there's a lot of problems with that. And dealing with that through the Chapelizod Basin program in QIPRA, we got a $4 million commitment to take down small banks, to improve the flow through that, to improve gates, and to eventually restore the flow of Catawba back to the river below Crotch Springs. And other things are being done. The Cypress Island needs to be improved. The water should go to Lake Falls Point as well as down to Vermilion. That can lower waters 4 to 6 feet in Lafayette. So things are being done. Right now, as we speak, through the Teche Vermilion Freshwater District, the Corps of Engineers, St. Landry Parish, St. Martin Parish, we opened the gates in Henderson. We've opened the gates in Catawba. We've shut the pumps off. So the rain event, if it's coming, it will be Tuesday and Wednesday. We're way ahead of the game. And so by draining that whole system, we drain Cypress Island. We will drain the 150,000 acres of swamp that are above Catawba. So when the rain comes, instead of filling the bayous and eventually homes, it'll fill the swamps first. And that's what happened during Barry. So with that, I'd say things are being done. Action is being taken now. They're opening the gates of Henderson as we speak. And they have to get a diver, and they have to have a wrecker, and it's kind of complicated to do, but it can make an enormous difference in the water levels here in Lafayette. So with that, I'm going to say that Dave is going to deal with the peculiar problems we have here in Lafayette.
Right. Thank you. I'm going to address the letter that was sent to the parish and to Clay Higgins and to Colonel Murphy at the Corps of Engineers. And y'all may be aware of this letter. It just was delivered to the parish president Friday, I believe. Okay. The title of the letter is Notice of Threat from Various Drainage Projects for Widening, Clearing, and Improvement Projects in Lafayette Parish. I'm going to talk to that in my presentation. Just to build on what Harold said, we've both been on the phone continuously for the last 2 days trying to coordinate and get everybody on the same page to get this water as low as we possibly can before the storm comes in. It wasn't too hard to convince them to do that, though, because they were kind of realized that we got a problem coming. So with that being said, I'll talk about what we see as flooding probable causes, some things about Ile de Con, which is basically a FEMA-regulated floodway up on the northern extent up there by Scott. And we're going to give you 3 example rapid rises events for the river we're going to talk about. And we're going to tell you why we think that's happening. So with that, we think probably part of the reason is that that were identified by the last administration, 27 high-priority drainage projects the public was clamoring for. And as far as we can tell, according to the drainage dashboard, they're all complete, okay? And they've probably done a really good job of getting that water to the river quicker, okay? And we're going to show you what's happening at the river. Now, I understand there's like a total of 70-something projects, so there's still some more things to be done there, with drainage in the parish. We need to do things in the right order, okay? And we'll start with this right here. This is what's happened last year. We had 5 12-foot flood events on the river last year. To give you some perspective of the 5 12-foot flood events, we only had 11 12-foot flood events for the 40-year period from 1940 to 1980, where records were kept at the Surrey Street gauge. So we believe that we're in the danger zone, that executing these projects in Lafayette Parish has done a very good job of running that water to the river even quicker than ever. And it's not just Lafayette Parish. All the parishes are cleaning their ditches. And the Vermilion River is not a unlimited resource to move the water to the Gulf of Mexico and to move the water into Cypress Island Swamp. So just make you aware of what's happening at the river. Okay, and we'll talk a little bit about Ile de Con. Doing the research on Ile de Con and that particular project, need to recognize that was a FEMA-regulated floodway that's been channelized into the Ile de Con channel, okay? And it was done to allow some development up there, okay? And we believe that some of that work is causing a threat to other places in the parish by transferring those floodwaters that happen up there in a very rapid manner down to the river and putting people on the river and people on some of these coulees at high risk. And we're going to show you some data to prove that point right here. But before that, we're going to take a look at Ile de Con, okay? For you folks that have not been up there, I was standing on the bridge for Ile de Con looking north toward I-10. This is right past the new library in Scott. It's a little ditch, maybe 25 feet wide, okay? It had been just recently cleared out, okay? But right south of that, if you turn around and you look south toward the river, this is what you see. And it is a dramatic increase. I think I calculated 700% increase in channel capacity from what it was to what it is now. And it's a direct shot to the river with a steep gradient. The gradient is far steeper from Scott, this area, the elevation here in Scott, to the river. Then it's about the same elevation change as it is from Lafayette to the Gulf of Mexico, but it's only 7 point something miles. Okay, so that water just rushes out of Ile de Con in a flood event, and it is impacting dramatically levels on the river. And here's some data that proves that. This is what happened during 2016. If you look at that peak is Ile de Con. That was the highest water that was measured in the parish. And that measurement was verified by a gauge at the E. Broussard Bridge, and it was also verified by a high water mark that the USGS conducted after the Great Flood of 16. And if you notice, the line slopes down to the Gulf of Mexico on my left, and it slopes down toward Cypress Island on my right. So the biggest contributor to the flood during 2016 was Ile de Con, okay? And this is Dr. Mike Walden, a degreed PhD hydrologist that teaches hydrology at UL, that prepared this data, okay? So just what's happening recently, okay? This is the event that kind of triggered this request from Nanette for us to come present about what's going on. May the 14th, we had a 4.5-inch rain event, okay, at the airport. I recorded 1.5 inches, so it wasn't a parish-wide rain. I live right about 6/10 of a mile north of Illican. The river jumped up 3.5 feet in 2 hours. It jumped up very quickly, and it scared a lot of people. That 3.5 feet is at the Surrey Street gauge. We're going to talk a little bit about that. What you're seeing at Surrey Street is not necessarily what you're seeing in neighborhoods like Acacia Drive or in Bendale Gardens, okay? The river went from flowing south at about 1,000 cubic feet per second to flowing north at 3,660 cubic feet per second. That's when the river's flowing backwards and it's going into Cypress Island. Okay, so it was a huge slug of water that hit the river really, really quick for it to rise that fast. Okay, and just some other events where we had some significant rises in Hurricane Barry. We had a 9.3-foot rise in 11 hours. If you'd have put that 9.3-foot rise on top of normal levels in the river, we'd have had another big flood again, okay? We were lucky that we were able to lower that level in the river, and that big slug of water went into a lot of these swamps Harold was talking about, like Cypress Island and the big complex up in Catawba. So that's what we're attempting to do that's what we've been working on the last 2 days, is to try to pull the same thing that happened in Hurricane Barry with this tropical event that's coming to reduce the risk. But just to show you, that river jumped up really high during the Hurricane Barry event, 9.3 feet. On June the 5th, we went up 4.4 feet in 4 hours, okay? And that was on top of a river that was already at 10 feet. And it caused the river to crest at 14.6, which caused people to flood here in town again. 14.6 is designated as a moderate flood by the National Weather Service at the Surrey Street gauge. Okay, so a point I want to make here, though, before I go any further, a technical point. You'll notice that crest on the river occurs at the same time as the maximum flow north to Cypress Island. Okay? The significance of that is that by doing some work in Cypress Island that we proposed to LCG, and they put it on their LWI project list, is to remove some small banks in Cypress Island that's going to accelerate the dispersion of that flow into the swamp. And we think lowering that crest and reducing the risk to the citizens on the river. And that's a very inexpensive project that has high impact, that could be done little if it wouldn't be for all the regulations and the rules and all the bull. We could actually go out there and do that in weeks, okay, and get it done and take a lot of risk off the table, just to let you know. Okay, so what's happening? Why do we see some of that rapid rise we saw here just the other day on the river? On my left is the Corps of Engineers survey, bottom survey, the last survey they did on the river. You'll notice on the left side it's zeros, on the right side it's 1, and this is right where Cooey comes into the river, and you notice a little deeper right there. So if you look at the right diagram, it's kind of like a profile of what the channel should be and what the channel is. What the channel should be is the rectangular box showing the width and the depth, okay? It's not the scale, obviously. That curved line is the actual bottom of the river because it's all silted in right there. But you notice there's a belly right there. And the belly is right where Cooey inflows into the river. So all of y'all have probably I'm sure all of y'all have driven down Johnson Street after a big rain, and you've looked at how fast that water runs in that concrete Cooey on Johnson Street. It looks like you're in the Rocky Mountains and it's a stream in the Rocky Mountains. The velocity is so high. When that velocity hits the river and it hits that little swale right there, you can imagine if you took your hose and you squirted it right there, and it's actually squirting up and creating a wave, And it's actually causing the river to rise even much higher than what you're seeing in Surrey Street in these people's yard. And it looks like this right here, and if we can get this to play right here. So Jeremiah did some video here of actually what happens. Whoops, I got to go back. See if I can figure out how to make this thing play. I don't see the start button to start the video, but I apologize for that. But Harold went out there with an instrument just the other day, and he took some readings about, you want to talk about that, what you found?
Yeah, it was kind of dramatic. Yeah, and thanks to the city engineers that were very helpful to give me the elevation of the sewer drain cover on the street in front of Jeremiah Supple's home. And it's 15.23. That's kind of important because the highest the water came at Surrey Bridge was 15.1. And if you look at the old records of the river, we never had water higher below Surrey Bridge. You go to East Broussard, which is down near where Ile de King comes, it's always 1 to 3 feet lower than Surrey Bridge. Now, we've dramatically changed that. We've built concrete coolers that just race that water to the river. It's not only carrying the water, it's carrying the sediment. The sediment is going to stay suspended in water moving 6 or 7 miles an hour. But it won't stay suspended in a bayou moving 1 mile an hour. So it's filling the bayou. These are self-draining coolers. They're designed so no mud or sediment stays in it. Well, it's filling the bayou. And of course it races, so we have this dramatic hill of water. And at Jeremiah's house during the flood of 2016, the water at his house was 4 feet higher than Surrey Bridge. 4 feet, and that's verified by other homes in the exact area. And that's a local problem.
I'll show you the video. I finally figured out how to get this video to play here if I can get this mouse to work here.
Okay, while you're looking for that, sir, Ms. Cook, you have something?
No, I was just going to say, yeah, we'll watch this, and then we might have to move on to the next speaker. But y'all have, as always, my head is spinning. A lot of information, great information, and I think we've learned a lot about what y'all are doing, and I really appreciate that. So, well, if we can watch the water going backwards, I see that from the back of my house.
Let's see if that will. Oh, I don't know why it don't work. Okay.
I believe you. It does go the wrong way. So.
All right. Is there any questions we can answer?
Yes. Mr. Guillory?
No, I just want to echo what Councilwoman Cook said to these two gentlemen, to Jeremiah and everybody in your organization. I know how much time you put into this. Just thank you. Thank you for what you do for our community. We don't all have the answers, but I know you guys are seeking that through science, and I appreciate that. So just adds to the discussion. Thank you for bringing these gentlemen up and all the presenters.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Rubin, you have a comment?
Hey. Hello. What's his name?
Wait till the end.
Hey, excuse me, Mr. Dave. I got a quick question for you.
Nanette,
Quick
did you
question
not?
for you. So I see y'all talking about the coolies, having them concrete and having that water move fast. Would you recommend, leave me alone, man. Would you recommend coolies being concrete or certain
concrete
ones?
coolies have some benefit, okay, but you probably need some retention along there. You probably need some weirs in there to slow the velocity down. Now, I'm speaking from recommendations that were made by Ms. Pam Granger, who's advisor to our board, who's a professional engineer, civil engineer that specializes in drainage. We had a large discussion. We had, along with this document we presented to the city, there is some backup technical information regarding that, a number of pages about this whole issue. And yes, there are things y'all can do, okay, that can remedy the system. You don't want to go out and dig your concrete coolies out. You want to fix it and make them work better, okay? Does that answer your question, Councilman?
I was just wondering if you would, recommend concrete coolies, or is it just certain areas?
They have pros and cons because, they're self-cleaning for the most part, because the velocity of the water is so high, they wash everything out. The negative is, okay, if you look at the shoals that I just showed you in that survey at Cooley Mean, okay, that's exactly where the problem was after the 93 flood. That is exactly the same shoals that they dug out when they dredged the river in 1997. So how the Corps could not recognize that fact, that those shoals have reappeared right there, and at least they need to be removed from the river right there, at a minimum, I can't answer that question, how they came to that conclusion, or how UL came to that conclusion. Being that they recommended to take them out in 95 when they did their report, and they took them out in 97.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Cook?
Okay, I want to bring up the next speaker, Ms. Monique Boulay. She's with the APC, the Acadiana Planning Commission, and she's where all the federal dollars are. So we want to be nice to Ms. Monique so we can get those federal dollars as well. So she's going to tell us what they've been working on. And if we could hold the questions till after maybe the last presentation, and then we can ask the questions at that point. So, all right, thank you, Monique.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. And my name is Monique Boulay. I'm the CEO of the Acadiana Planning Commission, and thank you for having us. For those of you who are new, the Acadiana Planning Commission is made up of 7 parishes: Acadia, Evangeline, Iberia, Lafayette, St. Landry, St. Martin, and Vermilion. The parish presidents, including Mayor President Guillory, make up my board of trustees that guide all of our decisions and all of our work. Councilwoman Cook asked me to come and give you an update on what we're doing and on the state initiative. Does everybody have this handout? I know we have extras if anybody wants one. So let me take you back to the floods of 2016, and I forced everything, really just the highlights on one single page to try to be brief, but a lot of work has happened since 2016. Very early on, APC was brought into the conversations in Baton Rouge, probably the week after the flood, with many of the federal agencies. And through our work, and as FEMA started looking at the economic impact of the Vermilion watershed, which you have to remember, Henry Hub goes through there and all of the pipelines, they very quickly asked if the APC would be their pilot partner for a watershed study. It was the first watershed study of its kind, I think, nationwide. And so we spent the next year, and when you're the pilot project for a federal agency, it just means a lot of meetings. But we spent the next year or so in a lot of conversations about what watershed planning could look like, what watershed management could look like. Because I often say we elect a mayor or a council person and on drainage, and we want to fix drainage, and you got about 2 years before it's your fault. And so quickly you'll have a mayor hire a firm and say, I got to do something. I got to fix this. It's going to flood again. And legally you only have the capacity to look at your jurisdiction, whether it's a municipality or a parish or whatever it is. If the problem sits in the next jurisdiction, you don't even have the legal authority to study it, much less fix it, unless you have a great partnership, right? Which we do in Acadiana, but I will say across the state, some of the parishes that neighbor each other are suing each other over this. They don't like one project or the other, so it can be really futile and a waste of money, right? We fix this problem within this jurisdiction and create another problem there. That's traditionally how drainage decisions have been made across the country. When we started this watershed initiative, I went to the Army Corps Mississippi River Commission meeting, and several of the commissioners pulled me aside and said, don't stop. Nobody is doing this. It is not rocket science, though. It is planning water flow the way water flows, and that's across political lines, but it really was kind of a breakthrough initiative. And so APC got into this. That was in 2016. By August of 2017, the board came up with a plan and asked the governor, instead of breaking up our mitigation dollars from 2016, give us one pot. The governor said, okay. He figured out what the impacts were. We got our fair share as a region. We didn't get extra, but with $25 million, we were going to prioritize drainage. Often this money is spent to raise houses or buy out single properties. excuse me, because no single jurisdiction gets enough to really do a significant project. And so with the combined dollars, the 25 million, we very quickly put a technical process in place. We asked every jurisdiction to send us an engineer or the technical people that they have on staff who make these decisions. And we put criteria together and we allocated the $25 million for projects. Now, to be clear, we never got $25 million in our bank account. We don't control the money. We never will get the $25 million. You, as a jurisdiction, and the other jurisdictions, apply into that money through FEMA. It's an extraordinarily complex process. Federal money is never fast, ever. Not in transportation, not in watershed. The logistics it takes, and I actually mapped out the $1.2 billion process to quickly kind of go through that. In February of 2018, Congress passed the Bipartisan Budget Act, allocating $1.2 billion to Louisiana. It took them until August of 2019 to issue guidance. They had decided HUD was going to manage the money. HUD had to put guidance together. It took over a year to get that guidance to Louisiana, who then has to flip around a plan. Louisiana was ready. We got the plan back to HUD by September. We received the guidance in August. They got the plan the month later. It was approved this February. It's approved, but the contract's not signed. So today, Louisiana's not seen $1 of the $1.2 billion. So federal dollars are the hardest dollars to spend, traditionally. I'm not casting these funds different than any other funds. Transportation funds are often the same. It's just you need to plan out your 5-year projects with these funds, not your must-have now projects. And I know drainage, it's really hard to say, everything seems like it's a must-have now, but these funds don't work for that. If you have a must-have now project, you need to identify local funds and move fast. But federal funds just really don't work like that. So that's where the state sits, and you have that here. So if you go back to the top, in the meantime, we allocated those projects, and if you want updates on those projects, Rachel Godo is here tonight, and we did reach out and get individual updates on the 5 projects. The Gage project, thanks to a quick call by Mayor President Guillory, got funded last week. That's something we've been working on since 2017, literally. Just got the go last week. So we are preparing for July 1?
Yeah.
Kickoff. It just takes that long. So in the state process, the governor created the Louisiana Watershed Council in May of 18, including the 5 agencies you have listed here: GOSEP, DOTD, OCD, CPRA, and Wildlife and Fisheries. With that, they developed regions, watershed regions, and that's what the map is that you see here. And we are Region 5. We are the largest watershed region. So APC will be the fiscal agent for this region. That includes the Tesh watershed, the Vermilion watershed, and the Marmontel watershed. So 3 watersheds we'll be managing. When we look at projects, I think the Marmontel will be a little independent, but the Tesh and Vermilion will certainly be considered together. How are they impacting each other? When the state uses these funds, they're looking for that regional impact. Trying to very quickly
Monique,
Yes.
can I break my own rule? Can you just kind of touch on the Gage project so everybody understands what that is you're referring to?
Sure.
Because that, I think, is important.
Sure. So in that pilot process with FEMA in the early years, we were going around the region and really having in-depth conversations all over the region. We were up in Ville Platte, and somebody stood up and said, can't we just get data? And it dawned on us, we really don't have very many river gauges at all throughout the entire region. And I'm sure these guys can tell you, we have 2 official ones, in the region on the Vermilion. And so trying to figure out what could we do to help. We could put a project together of gauges. And so APC, we are more of a facilitator. We don't really have the H&H expertise on staff, at least not at this time. So we reached out to UL. And there you have Dr. Habib and you have Dr. Miller. We asked them, give us a preliminary map from an H&H perspective. If you could put gauges, we kind of let them go big, and then we cut them back a little bit. They came up with over 300 gauges at first, and we're looking at now 100 locations with maybe close to 200 sensors, different kinds of gauges, with a web interface, with live or near live data, so that you can look at it, or even somebody who has a camp can look at it. And that's what an example, a citizen up there said, we know when the river reaches this mark on the tree, we've got to get the trucks out of the camp. So there's a citizen use there, there's a public use, but it also enhances our modeling. It builds, so every model, every watershed model that you deal with is only as good as its historical data. So building historical data and understanding our waterways is very important. It is something we did as a state years ago, many years ago. Bill Fontenot was the chairman at the time, and he was the DOTD district administrator for 30-plus years. He remembers the feds funded management of all of our interior waterways, and they were all well-maintained, and tremendous data was built. But the federal budgets got cut. It rolled down to the state, and eventually rolled into DOTD, and today it's about a $9 million infrastructure budget for the whole state, not just watershed. So that data, that historical data is there, but we have a gap in time of real data on our waterways. So Acadiana wants to build that data system with this regional gauge project. And it is something we've reached out to other areas of the country. After the flood, we looked, I think it was Iowa.
And Harris County.
Yes.
Texas.
Iowa, you can light up the whole state and see the water levels all over Iowa. And I thought, Iowa? We have more water. We should really be experts on our water. They figured it. Why are we not doing this? Harris County, it lights up. They have a tremendous gauge program there. They are watching their waterways. They are monitoring. They know what's happening at all times. And so building this baseline data was important. The next thing we really thought was modeling. Watershed modeling is not a new science. It's not anything we have to invent. It is a well-established science, but we've never taken the time or the money to really invest in it, to have it as a vital tool. When you do an individual project, and for you guys, you have more resources than all of the other jurisdictions, you spend a good chunk of that money on H&H studies. If we had a model for the whole region, we would be able to flush projects through that model and really understand the bigger impact upstream and downstream. And so the state is actually funding models for the entire state. We are in the first wave. As soon as this 1.2 gets released, the state has already procured the modeling teams for this region. We've met with them. I was very impressed. It is a world-class modeling team they have to come in, and we have a very complex watershed. So I'm learning. Every time we have these meetings, I'm learning more and more about it. But it is a very complex watershed, and it's got coastal interaction. The Vermilion River has tidal effects from the bay. There's all kind of different factors that they have to put into place. But once we have this model, really being able to identify those regional projects that have broad effect, impacts that help us manage things better, that make us smarter and more efficient, that will help. And then the third thing we identified that we needed was a strategic project prioritization for the region, based on data and based on science. In the absence of data and science, you all are forced to make almost political decisions on this stuff. Because without the data, what's one against the other, honestly. And so what we want to do is build that data for you. So when you're making these decisions, you can go to the science and see how it measures up and have a consistent measure across the board. And that's really been our initiative, and I'm looking at my time frame from 2018, but the state has taken that on too. And so that's part of the state process. And for the sake of time, I don't know if anybody has any questions. We said
On this?
no. No questions.
Well,
Okay.
don't go anywhere, though. Hang on. We might have a few, but thank you very
Okay.
much. Everybody's okay with moving on to the next? We're going to move on to Public Works, if they would come up. I know they have a little presentation. I've asked them to come. Are they in the, is Public Works out?
They come in the back.
Oh, okay. Some of the things I've asked them to provide updates are cooling and channel maintenance, any small or large capital projects that we maybe have planned for the drainage initiative, any projects submitted for possible state funding. These are some things that I've asked them to report. Detention and retention improvements. I asked them about the dredging report that was done by the Corps, and I think they're going to touch on that briefly. Any long-term projects that we may have planned that we could use some federal dollars for. And again, are we sitting at the table for the WLI initiative? And apparently the mayor is, so thank you very much for being there for that. So thank you guys very much for coming. We talking drainage. We still talking drainage. I feel like that's all we've been talking about for the last 4 years. And I'm sorry, to introduce these guys, we had Chad Nepfo and Brian Smith. And I'll let y'all also kind of give more details.
Yeah, thank you, Nanette. Good afternoon, good evening. Yeah, my name's Chad Nepfo. I'm Director of Public Works, and I appreciate all of the information that Mr. Dixon, Mr. Shuffler, and certainly APC has shared with us this afternoon. You know, obviously a very complex issue with drainage, and they've kind of touched on some of the more technical challenges that we have, trying to figure out how to really manage our watershed. It's obviously multi-parish. It's not a one-stop fix. So, you know, when we trying to give people service, we got single requests trying to help that one person. You know, it's very difficult to turn them away and say, look, we have bigger problems, you know, with the river or the channels. So we try to give service to each person, and sometimes requires us to rather blow their culverts out, dig their ditches out. In this case, doing maintenance, we're doing maintenance on channels, which obviously has a very localized benefit. So in the past, previous directors I know have come up and tried to give y'all updates on our drainage management initiative, which focused on channel maintenance, and it was funded that way. And we will try to continue to do that, and we'll give y'all a little update on that right now. I assume most of you maybe know how it got started. Obviously, the 2016 flood came through and caused all those problems. So the previous administration wanted to we really need to do something now. And I believe that the initiatives that they put in place and that you guys have funded gave us the ability to go out and affect people immediately. And to date, and excuse me, we had targeted 79 channels, over 100 miles of channels that were targeted and rated to try to get the best cost benefit with the funding we had, which is obviously, never enough, but limited. And they were prioritized by that rating. And for the last 2 years, we've been making progress in getting those channels maintained. You can go to the next thing. Yeah, okay, so they were grouped in 3 different groups. And I think for simple terms, they were pretty much A, B, and C is the priority that the rating system put in place. And currently we work through A and almost all the way through B. It's anticipated by the end of the year we should have all the A's and B groups completed. We've got 60 miles completed in the last 2 years. That's actually a lot faster than we anticipated due to the difficulties and the type of work of doing a drainage canal, maintaining it under the existing conditions and through people's backyards and without disturbing their fences, their buildings. It takes very specialized equipment, so we were encouraged to know that there's contractors out there who are creative and inventive enough to be able to get in some of these really difficult places and make some progress. And we could tell that was the case because the cost for doing this work was well below our estimates. So we hats off to the contractors who were doing all this work for us. So as I said, we've almost 60 miles completed. Currently, we got about 5 miles being cleaned right now. That's going to add to the total. Before the end of the year, we'll have, you can go to the next thing, we have 6 more channels that are going to be bid, 7 miles. So we'll have 44 channels completed, almost 72 miles in less than 2 years. And we'll, at the cost of about $11.5 million, which was basically with the funding that was provided over the last 2 years. Like I said, we're very excited. We're able to go through this list in that period of time. You know, we're estimating there's 30 to 40,000 homes in those drainage areas where these channels take the water from those neighborhoods. As part of the, also part of the drainage maintenance project, we identified through all our requests for service, a lot of historical knowledge from the management and other engineers that worked in public works. We targeted, we found all the hot spots where some of these subdivisions were having problems and targeted 370 miles of roadside ditch digging. This would be just like in front of your house. We decided we would do that in-house through our drainage crews. I think the last time, apparently that number didn't get changed, but the last time we updated, it was 265 miles have been completed of that 370 targeted. I know it says 190 right there, but it's actually a little better. That's been, like I said, very successful under the circumstances. We have a tremendous backlog of service requests, still resulting from 2016. But our crews have managed to get in those areas and get those ditches cleaned, maybe blowing out pipes, assessed, did whatever maintenance we felt we could adequately do. Continuing on, we realized we've been a proactive group, and we've kind of talked about this from the beginning. It's not necessarily desirable to sit around and wait for problems to occur and have people calling. So certainly our Mayor President, Josh, he identified that real early on and says, you know, we really need to be proactive. We can't just sit around and just address the volume of complaints. We should be more active in getting out there and doing what needs to be done. So over the last 6 weeks, we've engaged with consultants to help us develop a recurring drainage maintenance plan. And hopefully in the next 6 to 8 weeks, it's going to take a little while to develop the background information that we need to get this going, but we're very encouraged that this is the way it should be done. And we hope in the near future to maybe share this information with you guys and maybe a later update. And I think it's a really big, it's going to, you know, it's going to be very exciting for these crews to go out there and not just, again, have to deal with just dealing with the requests. We can get ahead of this thing. That's what really we need to do in terms of maintenance. So I think, Brian, if you want to add anything to our roadside crews, you're welcome to contribute and comment on your guys, because I know they do a good job.
Sure. Good evening, Brian Smith with the Department of Drainage. Glad to be here tonight. And a lot of good information shared. I was in the back listening. Great ideas. A lot of those things we've all talked about and thought about and are engaging in. As Chad said, my task is primarily the maintenance. We do work together side by side, and he helps out with some of the larger scale projects. We realized early on that with all those setbacks, as far as being pinched, people have built up close to the channels. They've enhanced their yards and landscapes, so it makes it difficult to work traditionally from the top bank in most cases. So we engaged some equipment that could work from within the channels, so that was a key factor, and it also probably saved us a lot of money in doing so. We don't just always focus on the roadside stuff. We do perform some channel maintenance as well with our in-house staff. We are a little bit limited as far as equipment needs go. But other than that, we're pegging along, and we're trying to get requests knocked out. And I, too, agree that the need to be proactive is definitely the key here. So we do have a backlog, and we do appreciate everybody's patience as we try to muster through these things. But I thank you, and I imagine we'll have some questions to answer.
Yes, sir.
First of all, thank you so much, and thank you for all you're doing. I mean, I know you have been cleaning and cleaning and cleaning and trying to keep the maintenance going in all the channels, and thank you for doing that. I have just a couple of questions, and I don't want to put you on the spot here, but I know that you're thinking projects down the road that maybe we might have submitted to the state, certain projects. And I say this, and I know that and I'm going to say this as a disclaimer, there's no guarantee that these will be funded, but I do want the public to know that y'all have put some projects to, put them forward to the state that are projects that will help possibly with some of our drainage issues. And, maybe we'll get one of the 5 funded, but it takes work to put those projects together and to submit them to the state. So I know that y'all have done some of that already, so I thank you for that. I don't know if you want to, elaborate on any of that, or you're not comfortable with that yet. I feel like, I think the public would probably be interested in knowing what direction you're thinking in those.
Well, let me just say this. I mean, we submit some concepts. Of course, we look at all categories. No applications have been even looked at yet on that.
Right.
During the process. So it's really premature. It really is to try to take the chance that there's false hope we know we need retention,
right.
detention. That's the key,
But just so that we know you're looking at that. Y'all are definitely.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm Team Dixon and Shuffler. I mean, these guys realize the river's got a problem. And,
right.
I mean, on the smallest scale, we make all developers come out and dig ponds to hold their water, to control and manipulate what's running off of their property. Well, the river's obviously a huge operation, or these channels that feed it. I think the channels need the same concept. We need to be able to control, we have the volume of water that's going into the river. So, these are big, complex ideas. Where exactly do these detention ponds need to be? It's going to be difficult to figure out without the data. And,
right.
To have 2 rain gauges or stay gauges on the river, I mean, for a parish this size, to say we know all we need to know with 2 gauges, I think that's stretching it. And so we're going to have to make some investments to get the data to support and prove that these projects are going to be cost beneficial and viable. And if we find anything that we believe is going to make the difference, I know I have the confidence that our mayor is going to say, we're not going to wait for the feds. We're going to try to get this thing done and help whoever we can help at any time.
And I think the Gage project was mentioned before. So, I think really one of the reasons I wanted you to all be in the same room is that y'all are all smart people. So we need to get those heads together and start talking in terms of, and I think y'all are. Do we have a representative on the LWI from Public Works? Someone that sits on that council from Public Works?
Stephanie Weeks.
No, Stephanie Weeks from planning.
Stephanie
planning,
Weeks.
okay,
Yeah,
all
Stephanie
right.
Weeks is on the
Okay,
committee.
I just was, okay, so you get the information probably from the mayor. Okay, good,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, we're working all together. There's constant communication and collaborating, working with the neighboring parishes. I mean, we know the importance of that.
Right.
So it is going on. It may not be documented in the news, every day, every week. But again, these are just one of many things that are always on our mind.
And that's why you're here, to tell them that you are working with them.
Yes,
So
we
I
are.
appreciate that everyone's, trying to figure it out, so.
Absolutely.
All right,
Absolutely.
I'll let someone else ask.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chad, I have a couple of different questions, so they're kind of shotgun approach. They're all over the place. But, so for me, this is one of my top priorities. I think in 2016, my parish district suffered more homes flooded than any other parish district, if I'm not mistaken, Youngsville, Broussard, that area, south side of the parish. So this is important to me. It's important to many people in my district. I know the APC mentioned the $1.2 billion, and you kind of referenced it. Can you give us, and it could be after this meeting next week, what projects you guys have proposed funding from that $1.2 billion that the feds have made available? I know that specifically for Lafayette Parish, I know that we referenced the gauges, but the city of Youngsville's moved forward. I think they were the first to get projects approved in 2 regional detention ponds. They're working on a third for the Anselm Coulee. They're looking at a third detention pond that would not just affect Youngsville, but Milton, south side of Lafayette. But I think it'd be beneficial for everyone on the council not to just, to be able to see what specific projects have been applied for. I know nothing has been awarded and nothing has been granted yet. It's a slow-moving process, but I'd certainly love to see what projects are there. So is that something you can provide?
Yeah,
to
I
us?
was, that's pretty much the same question that Annette was asking.
Right. She just said, are you working on it? I would like to see the list of projects that are.
Absolutely. I mean, I really look forward to sharing more details. I mean, obviously.
No, I know. This is.
There's opportunities, whether it's funded by the feds or not. I mean,
Right.
again, this is.
I just know
This
when
is
we have limited dollars and in the current environment, if there's $1.2 billion that's available, and I know how it's going to be spread out, and I know that there's going to be a limited amount that actually comes to Lafayette Parish. But still, even if that's $100 million, that's $100 million that our taxpayers have paid in federal taxes that we can get back, and we don't have to tax people for those specific projects, right? I'd rather give Brian more money to dig out ditches than spend that money on other projects if we can get it from the feds. So that's all I'm saying with that.
Yeah. My feeling is if the project meets the eligibility requirements and as an applicant and gets accepted, to me, we're in the game. And I would certainly like to share with you what's planned in the game,
No, absolutely.
If you just want ideas, I can give you lots of ideas. We got plenty. But to really have something material to report, and certainly we can do this as an update. As Monique had mentioned, the process is going to move a little slow for getting the funding and the timing on the application process. I mean,
No,
look,
I know
as soon as this information is documented and solid, I would say, we should share this with the
So
public.
somebody just sent me, I guess somebody who's watching just sent me a list of all the projects applied for by Lafayette Parish. So there you go.
There you go.
That's right. 2 other questions, and I know you're new to this role, and I believe these things took place in the prior administration and before you were in this, your position. But when we hire outside contractors to come and clean out some of these coulees, what oversight is being done to ensure that they're actually completing the job to a satisfactory level? And this is why I'm asking. I know for a fact, because I have the pictures, I've talked to other drainage engineers for other municipalities where companies were paid, in some cases, hundreds of thousands of dollars to clean out a coulee, and they didn't remove 1 inch of silt from the bottom. They cut trees over the coulees, and it looks better, but they left washing machines and tires that were along the bank, and didn't remove 1 inch of debris over a mile section, but we paid them, I think in this one case that I'm referencing, over $400,000 for a project that's marked off completed in the presentation. Like I said, this is, I'm not trying to put you on the spot. You're new in this role, and I believe this happened a year or two ago. But what type of oversight are we bringing that when we spend this kind of money and it's marked off on a website that it's completed, that it's actually improved the flow of water and the retention capabilities, and we're not just spending money for them to go and trim a few branches over these coulees?
Yeah, well, I'm not familiar with the specific project you're referring to. You're assuming that the project was complete at the time you were notified of that information. Those projects sometimes move a little slow. They could demobilize and come back for some reason. But again, we can look into that and see what the nature of the problem was. We certainly wouldn't accept that, obviously. We have inspectors with these guys inspecting all their activities. So we have eyes in the field. We have managers looking over the projects. Again, if there's an issue as you're describing, I would personally want to know about it, and we'll get to the bottom of it.
I'd certainly love to have those.
We wouldn't accept that.
Yeah, no, we can certainly have those conversations, and I can include the people that notified me of that. And that kind of leads to my last question. Are we, the APC referenced the importance of looking at this and a regional approach, not just this specific project. Is your office in conversations with Pam Granger in Youngsville and her counterpart in Broussard and all the municipalities to make sure that we're not stepping on each other's toes, that we are working together? And simply because I know one project that's just begun in the last couple weeks in the Youngsville area, there were people from Youngsville out bidding on a project, and our crews were coming through doing some maintenance on the same channel in the same spot, and they were upset because their bids were changing because it was only going to be, I'm going to make up the number, 4.5 miles instead of 5 miles, because there was some overlap there, and there was just some people weren't talking. So are we doing enough to coordinate with other people that are in your position, maybe in some of these other municipalities, make sure that we're maximizing our efforts, not stepping on each other's toes, and we're able to accomplish everything really as effectively and efficiently as possible?
Yeah. Well, it's a high-volume environment with all that bidding activity. If it was a project, say Broussard was bidding out, I'm not sure what the communications are on their actual bid dates and how much we're tracking in-house. Something we probably could do more efficiently is keep track of those local municipalities and what they're doing. I'm not real familiar with the situation you're talking about, but I do believe we had an agreement where we could come in and do maintenance as part of our drainage initiative project. And I think maybe there was some overlap, some confusion on who was doing what. But at the end of the day, we appreciate our relationships with the local municipalities. When I first took this job, I really wanted to reach out to all those local towns and really bring all those engineers, all the decision makers, particularly with drainage, because it's an important subject, to try to get to know and where everybody stands and make sure we're moving in the same direction. Right. Now, COVID kind of messed me up because I didn't have a chance to really organize. But to answer your question, we haven't been as maybe engaged as I'd like. But it's certainly, I think, necessary going forward.
I think that'd be very beneficial. Whatever I can do to help facilitate that, I think it's important. Just if we're going to maximize our efforts, and like APC said, if we're not going to just look at City of Lafayette and unincorporated areas, and Broussard's doing their own thing, and Youngsville's doing their own thing, and Scott, how can we all work together? And maybe they have an idea or approach that we haven't considered, or maybe we can share information. I think that is going to help us go further with what we're currently doing. And we're basically replicating what APC is doing on a regional level, on a parish-wide level, even though, yes, we might have jurisdiction parish-wide, they still have dedicated staff and engineers in their respective municipalities. So I definitely think that's something worth pursuing.
Absolutely.
So, thank you very much for the job that you're doing. I really appreciate it. And maybe we'll follow up some more on some of those details.
Be great. Thank you.
Ms. Hebert.
Thank you, sir. Good evening. A few questions.
I know that we mentioned individual projects, and I know that whenever we started working on tiers A, B, and C, we were going to get those out the way and discuss if there were any more individual neighborhood projects that affected not just one home, but multiple homes and neighborhoods. When are we ready to start having that discussion? Or has that already started internally?
You're kind of referring to, maybe can we add more channels to the
Right,
program?
correct.
And I would encourage, even at this time is a good time.
Okay, perfect.
It's generally data-driven decisions, but we have to start somewhere. So we expect that whether we get them in-house or from the council, from even property owners, we take the channel, we'll look at it for its merits and run it through the rating system and
Right.
see where it falls. So, I mean, being that we know we really cleared out some of the more hot spots, but that doesn't mean there's plenty of channels. We have over 900 channels in the parish. And we've kind of targeted about 75, so we got a long ways to go. So I know there's some high-value maintenance that can be done, and again, it's just identifying those, and I encourage you guys to submit that information to us so we can evaluate it and put it on the.
Okay, perfect, because I know that there was a point where you guys wanted to wait until you were through with your list to then identify new projects that didn't make that list. So I'll start submitting you. I have 4 or 5 in my head that I know need taken care of, that take care of a whole neighborhood, not just one house. And then I know you mentioned that you're still going through your backlog of drainage service requests. I know that at one point we were at a 2-year backlog of cases. Where are we now with that? Are we still around the 2-year mark?
It's still around that because they continue to come
just
in
keep
naturally.
coming.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that's still factual, is that we're still around a 2-year backlog?
Yes, ma'am.
And just so the people at home are listening, is how they identify what projects to go after is that they send someone out, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is how I understand it, is that if we submit a service request, you guys go out and view the actual issue, and then you rate it high, medium, low, and then it gets put in order. So even though you called 2 years ago, you may be on a medium, low, and someone who called yesterday may be a high and get put before you. Is that still correct?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
similar to what it works out to be.
Okay, because I do have people who contact me, especially right now. I know we're all going to be getting calls from people with the storm coming up that are concerned that they called in a year ago and they still haven't been addressed. So they may, and I know some people, my constituents, find comfort that maybe they're on a low end rather than a high end. So just keep that in mind. Can you send an update? You had here on one of your slides, you have identified areas, and they were, I think, in green that you were going to address on your slide. I didn't have that next to me, so
I believe you're referring to the roadside.
on this slide right here. Here, can you send me the identified area? That's not it either. Where was it? Here we go.
Oh, yeah.
On roadside ditch maintenance, you have identified areas. Can you send us a list of what you considered identified? And send it to the whole council, because I think everyone's going to want to know that. And then Howard and Dave mentioned earlier that they had reached out to get the pumps shut off in light of this storm coming, this tropical storm coming. In 2019, I did a resolution that would have LCG automatically make that call to get them turned off. And I know we're dealing a different administration, different group of people, but if I need to get you a copy of that resolution, part of the problem is that before we had citizens making that call, and the people when they called said, well, no one's asked us to, I guess we'll turn it off. So my resolution back in 2019 said that when LCG anticipates a large storm event, whether it's a hurricane, heavy rain, et cetera, that we would be the ones calling to get those pumps turned off. So just want to make sure new people.
I spoke to,
Well,
can you give me my, I don't know if they specifically.
okay.
I spoke to Mr. Segura over at Tetra Vermilion Freshwater District earlier today, and so right now, they've not been running the pumps because of the amount of rainfall that we've gotten. The river's about a foot lower than what it is. And then he said they will continue to monitor it and work with Sidra and Josh, just depending on the path of the storm, to make a decision if they're going to turn those pumps on in the next few days or let it continue to go down. And then he also mentioned that there's a Ruth Canal structure. He said right now they've lowered that 3 inches from 15 inches to 12, and that they're looking at potentially closing that completely if we're going to take a direct hit from that tropical storm. So that's kind of where they are today. And then he said he would work with Sidra to coordinate if the call needed to be made to keep those pumps off and close that structure in the next week or so.
That's great. I mean, but that initiative wasn't there years before, and that's great that he's doing that, and thank you for that update, Councilman Carlson. But the discussion of the resolution is how it was going to be addressed, was that Public Works Director was going to reach out and make that call. I want everybody calling them, telling them, I'd rather too many calls than nobody calling to turn off the pumps. So just wanted to remind you guys about that. And then also we talked about subsurface drainage. Another thing that where can we put these ponds? In the last administration, we talked with Public Works about where do we have land in the middle of Lafayette that we could use for subsurface or retention ponds? And one of the ideas that Councilwoman Cook and I spoke about is using our parks as subsurface drainage retention. So I don't know if that's something that we even want to start opening up that discussion, is that we have many parks in the city and the parishes. Why not use that for retention, subsurface retention? So just an option. Just want to get ourselves thinking about that as well. I know that's more of a long-term, bigger project, but I'd like to have that discussion with you guys since you're now in these positions as well. But thank you for all you're doing. Y'all are doing a great job. Thank you, and that's all I have, Chairman.
Okay. Mr. Lazar?
My question is more of a financial nature, so I guess it should be directed to Lori. Hey, Lori, how you doing? Could you give us the balance remaining in the drainage fund, if it's readily available, or could you get it to us at some point?
The balance available in the drainage fund
The parish-wide drainage fund.
The
yes.
parish-wide drainage fund, that fund is budgeted to be fully expended annually. So there is no fund balance left over in that fund. There is some fund balance in the stormwater management fund. So you'll see that during the budget process. But the main drainage fund, where the large portion of the millage goes to, is budgeted to be depleted annually, and that's both for capital and for O&M.
Because I was looking at on one of the handouts, the channels being bid, handout that we just received from Chad, and it says that by the end of 2020, 44 channels will be completed at an estimated cost of $11.5 million. So do we budget projects based on the anticipated revenue, or how do we do it? How is it done? So it'll balance out year by year. How exactly is that done?
So you being a city council person, you have a few more options to draw city capital projects from. And that could be from city bond money or from city pay-as-you-go money. It's not just limited to the parish-wide drainage fund. So it's probably from one of those other multiple sources.
Okay, thanks. I'll follow with you on that.
Ms. Cook?
All right. One last question. It's kind of the big question about dredging. And I'm just going to say, you know, we talked about dredging the river, and I know the river is a core project. But the results we got back from that analysis were not, you know, encouraging as far as doing any kind of dredge. But I know that Dr. Habib from UL is actually doing some studies and kind of taking it to the next level to help us to determine, okay, if we don't dredge the river, maybe there's some other options. So I'm hoping that maybe that conversation can be had between Public Works as well, so that we understand too the importance of that particular project. That's not, it's not looking like it's going to happen in terms of from the Corps, but I'm hoping that there's some other studies out there that are being done by UL that maybe can give us some insight into, okay, some of the projects that we're talking about doing, maybe, based on his information, maybe we need to do this instead. So to help relieve some of that water that's, coming to the river. So I just want to kind of put that bug in your ear to maybe if you haven't followed up with him, or if we can, have some kind of conversation with him to see, maybe what kind of information he can share with us. So.
Well, on that statement, we are pursuing and currently working out a cooperative endeavor agreement with UL for that purpose.
Okay.
To work with Dr. Habib. So that's exactly what we're doing. So
I just wanted to confirm that, but good. All right. Sounds good. Thank you. That's all I have.
CAO.
I'd much rather defer to the CAO. No. Now, I just want to kind of add a little bit to the discussion, and I appreciate it, and I definitely appreciate these two gentlemen. I know how hard they work. I see them almost on a daily basis, definitely on our standing meetings, and I appreciate everything that you do. I think it was Councilwoman Abear maybe that asked about the service cost. Someone asked about the service cost. So just kind of a big picture over aerial 30,000-foot view. I don't know if you mentioned, Director Naveau here had mentioned a recurring drainage maintenance plan. We don't have one right now. Right now it's chasing a carrot on the stick. The squeaky wheel gets the grease, which is fine. It's a lot of work, and these guys are organizing as much as they can. They're doing a great job. But the idea, the intent from having a recurring plan is to do twofolds. A large percentage is a recurring plan, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and then you start over, you reevaluate it, so it's a continual spectrum there, it's a continual mission. But also a significant portion, a smaller portion, but significant nonetheless, to react to these service calls. By doing both, the theory is we'll get that 2-year window, like you were talking about, down to a 1 year, down to a 6 month, and then ideally, and you guys are going to laugh, but we will have a QRF. Quick reactionary force, that's my Army terms. But, to handle the service calls, because just because someone picks up the phone and says, come dig in my ditch, and I'm saying this as a layperson, that may not be what we need to do in the overall grand scheme of things. I defer to the experts. I'm glad we're working on this. As Chad mentioned, we should have something to present if you'll have us back to present an update to the public once we get the recurring drainage maintenance plan complete. Probably have a better product to provide to you. But this is great. These are great discussions. We talk about it all the time, from parks to subsurface, all those ideas. I promise you it's not falling on silent ears here. We're definitely listening to it. And also, I do have Mr. Donald Segura's number very handily. I want the council to rest assured. I'm fully aware, and mainly thanks to Mr. Dixon and Mr. Scheffler for educating me on those pumps when I was running for this office. They educated me quite well. Thank you. But no, you guys are on the right page, and I think it's the tone here. This is a collaborative effort. Monique Boulet, who does an excellent job at APC, and your team, made probably the statement of the night. Water knows no boundaries. Definitely does not know political subdivisions, and we just got to tackle this as a regional approach. That's what we're doing, and we're going to continue to do so. So I just wanted to add to the discussion.
Okay, CAO?
Yeah. Put her on the mic.
That was him.
Yeah, that was him, huh? Okay. Mr. Gilbo.
I've been listening very closely to all the comments that have been said tonight, and there's nothing that I think that I would disagree with. I'm certainly in support of each and every one of these organizations, Monique, Mr. Dave, Mr. Harold, LCG, for your work. I compliment you on what you have done. I know there's still a lot to be done. Over the years, there's been a lot of neglect, and we're all behind the 8 ball trying to catch up. And I cannot say enough about the work, the effort that y'all have put into it. I'm very, very proud to be surrounded with such professionals, individuals that know the business. I feel comfortable that we're in good hands when it comes to water management, and I appreciate that. Not only from the professional staff here at LCG, but Monique, and even our citizens who work so hard. It's unbelievable the knowledge that we have within this community, and I really do appreciate that. This is the dilemma that I see, and I think it's been referred to not only tonight, but several times. We have a number of projects within the parish that are going on that we have identified. We're working through them. And without a doubt, much needed work. It had to be done, and it is giving some relief within that area. The mayor referred to the need to make sure that we marry up all of our projects. Don't just do something that it'll have a greater impact within another community. We got to make sure of the impact as a whole, not just in isolation. I'm most concerned right now, and I think these projects are helping. The problem, as I see it, we are flowing that water throughout the parish at such a rapid pace into the Vermilion and other rivers and coulees. We're causing a problem within those tributaries, within those rivers, those channels. And as a result, we're getting that backflow along the river. And I know this is not your problem, Chad or Brian, and it's the core. Somebody mentioned that earlier. It's a core issue. And at what point are we going to say, we've talked enough, we've studied enough, we've got the data, it's all over the place. It clearly shows where the problem is. We heard this earlier from Mr. Dave. At what point do we say it's time to put up and let's get this thing done? Now, we can do all of these other projects which are making an impact or are having an impact. But we're creating a greater impact. We had 3.5 inches of rain a couple of weeks ago, and we had homes and businesses threatened by 3.5 inches. What the heck's going to happen in a few days if that storm comes ashore and hits us? Are we going to have another 2016? Potentially. And listen, I'm not pointing the fingers at you guys, none of you. The problem is outside this room, and they're not in here tonight. And it is the core. Just go north of this parish. Go up into that Catawba area that Mr. Dave talked about earlier. We have structures that were built 40 and 60 years ago. They're not working anymore. They're supposed to be protecting us. They're not doing anything. In some cases, they're not even functioning. They're dead. Go to the east. We've got pipelines, old pipelines. We have silting of the basin. We have spalls that are building up, that are impeding the flow of the water. And what have we done? Nothing. As Mr. Dave said, just removing some of those spoils would certainly help the flow of the water in this. Not only in the whole area, but within this parish. And all of those projects you're doing then would marry into that. But there again, I think we're separated, we're divided, we're not coming together with those kinds of things. So there's a greater problem that out of your control, out of our control right now, until we get the core on board. Again, I want to say, and I'm tired of hearing we need to study, we need to study, we need to study. I understand the difficulty of getting funds. I get that. But I'm telling you, this old boy is going to be an old man if we don't start doing something today. And I'm not talking about doing it tomorrow. Listen, I appreciate all of the efforts, great efforts. But there's a player here that's not here tonight that should be and helping us with this issue. Great job to each and every one of you. I appreciate you. I really do appreciate the expertise that you bring. Individuals that probably have more knowledge than some of those other individuals out there that are not here tonight. I appreciate you. I'm very passionate about this. And I think what we're doing within the parish is great. What we're doing regionally, Monique, is great. But somehow, we've got some bigger issues that we are not addressing. I don't know why we have to be dragging our feet on this. The data is there. Thank you to all. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any more questions? Any public comments?
Yes, sir, we do have public comment, and the first speaker called in and requested to be first. He called in since earlier. The first speaker is Donald Broussard. Just a moment, Mr. Broussard. You may begin speaking.
Okay, good evening, Mayor President Guillory and all of the City Council ladies and gentlemen. My name is Donald Broussard, and I am here speaking this evening on behalf of the Timberwood Homeowners Association subdivision. We're a relatively small subdivision off of Bayroad School Road of about 50 homes. I'd like to first start by thanking each and every one of you for your public service, and thanking in particular Councilwoman Nanette Cook for her continual diligence in addressing drainage in our district that continues to be a problem. This evening I'd like to voice our continued concerns that are grave about the continued flooding, in particular in our subdivision, as was noted earlier by one of the speakers, as recent as the localized rainstorm that we had on May the 14th. We had some amateur reading of rainfall, and in our subdivision, we had one report of as much as 8 inches of rain. I believe there was a comment of it being closer to 3.5 or 4 inches. But it took nearly 2 hours after that rainstorm for our subdivision to drain. Water rose to levels that literally threatened intrusion into homes. We had 1 or 2 occasions where cars and trucks were driving through, pushing wakes within feet of front doors. And this is just a regular old mid-afternoon thunderstorm that is so typical of our hot summer environments that we live in. A group of our residents have been furnishing information to Ms. Cook that range from undersized drainage pipes, clogs, drainage coulees. I believe Coulee Micho is one of those coulees. I didn't see or hear any talk about that. And the continued overbuilding in our district that we all feel are contributing to this 20-plus year problem. When our subdivision was first developed, and I'm a long time one of the original residents in this subdivision, we did not have this problem. You know, we were all very excited to see Barrett School Road finally getting constructed, and we thought that that was going to be a partial solution to our problem, only to find out when, on May 14th, as a matter of fact, where we were holding water up to the footsteps of our doors, Barrow School Road was dry, right adjacent to our subdivision. No standing water at all. The connector to the entrance to our subdivision was built up, and we literally sit in a bowl here. And we can't get the attention of anyone to come and look at this. It's a common sense problem that doesn't require a rocket scientist to do something about. We're all very nervous, we're all very concerned, and we're begging each and every one of you to do something about it. Apparently our subdivision sits last in line to drain. And I appreciate all of the good work that is being done throughout the parish, throughout the state, in clearing out coulees and getting water directed and some of the concepts of building these retention ponds and whatnot, but the fact is, you know, the water getting out of our subdivision leaves in some very small drainage pipes, small in diameter. We wait in line, and we flood while waiting. I'd be happy to let any of the presenters from earlier this evening speak to any of these problems, but please, we're imploring that something be done to address our problem. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Broussard. Next speaker, we have 4 blue cards here in the auditorium. Bob Hammock is the first speaker. He will be followed by Jeffrey Swetson.
Hello, my name is Bob Hammock. I live in Bendale Gardens. I'm on the board of the Dredges of Vermilion organization. I was extremely impressed with what Councilman Gilbo had to say. He pretty much tied it all together. And he look, the whole problem with this thing is it's ass backwards. You're getting your, it's like you got a house and all your plumbing is clogged up in the house. So, and it's clogged up where the drain, you'll understand this one, Brian, you're a plumber. It's clogged up where the drain goes into the street. So you clean all the drains out in your house, but you don't, the main sewer line's clogged up. Water's not, yeah, your house is going to drain for a little while, but then all of a sudden it's going to come right back in your house. You haven't solved the problem. You know, you don't paint the inside of your house while your roof's leaking and things like that. You got to do things in the right order. And that's the whole problem here is we got these guys from the city, like you say, they're doing a great job. They're getting after it and cleaning out the coulees. But the main line, the main artery that drains the water is still clogged. And if we have a 2016 type event, I believe all you're going to really do is change the order of flooding. You're just going to say before the people on the coulees they were draining slowly, they flooded. Then the water got to the river and we flooded. Well, this time we're going to flood first because their water's coming down on us real fast, but it's not going to go anywhere. It's going to come right back up and everybody's going to be flooded. We're going to be in the same boat, okay? If we don't address this river, I don't care if we wait for the Corps of Engineers. I don't care if we got to put together a private company or a fund or something. We got to fix these big things. And Harold and Dave have identified shovel-ready projects that can make a difference. And 1 foot or 2 feet makes a huge difference. The number of houses in Lafayette Parish in the 2016 flood that had under 2 feet of water in was probably 80–90% of them. It would have saved us billions of dollars. And I'd also like to comment a little bit, and hopefully I'm not being too blunt or direct here, but the other thing that Mr. Gilbo talked about was this incessant studying and modeling, engaging, and talking and yapping and blah 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 blah. It's not doing anything. Okay, we have years. Harold and Dave told you they've been studying. We have data going back to 1930 telling you what's been happening. We don't need new models and all that kind of stuff. I mean, you can make a model say anything you want. We live in a real physical world with real water flooding real people's homes and destroying their lives. And we're sitting around talking about, let's do some more models and get some more gauges. We have enough information. We know what we need to do. We need to start doing it. Thank you very much.
Next speaker is Jeffrey Swetson, followed by Jeremiah Supple.
Thank you. My name is Jeffrey Swinson. I'm a Lafayette citizen and a local business owner, and I'm on the board for Dredges of Vermilion. A lot of the things that I was going to talk about this evening was already discussed. I'm really glad that the city has talked with the Tesh Vermilion Water District. We did as well with regard to turning off the pumps. That makes a big difference, reducing the level of the water in the river. But we've also wanted to just mention to you other things that Dredge the Vermilion has done under the direction of of Dave Dixon in preparation for this system that's getting ready to come up here. Hopefully it goes more to the west, but we don't know. We've also spoken with Harold Taylor with St. Landry Council to request the Corps of Engineers to open up the gates on Bayou Catawba for water flow into Lake Henderson. If we don't do that, then the water in Catawba would end up overflowing and going into the Vermilion River. So we want to divert that water into Henderson. We've also spoken with Sherman Collette, Mayor of Henderson, and Casey Corville, Director of Public Works for St. Martin Parish, to open the locks in the southern part of Lake Henderson in order to discharge the flood waters into the west of Chapel Spillway. This request was also coordinated with St. Martin Parish President Chester Cedars. And lastly, we've spoken again with Donald Segura with regard to opening the locks or closing the locks on the Ruth Canal, stopping the water flowing from Bayou Teche into the Vermilion. You know, another action that you might want to consider too would be to open the bridge at a high water level in downtown Abbeville, which acts as a log jam and holds debris and slows the water down from flowing to the bay. This is all dealing with the flood plan that's getting ready to happen to us. Dresden Vermilion is a small group of concerned citizens who are working in a collaborative effort with surrounding parishes, including council members, Director of Public Works, mayors, and other public officials in order to help reduce flood threat in Lafayette, St. Landry, and St. Martin parishes. A couple of years ago, the Dresden Vermilion had developed a Acadiana Regional Flood Management Plan. We offered it to the council at the time, but it was not adopted. Now we're 2 years down the road and we're facing another potential flood threat. So if you don't have a flood management plan in place, Dresden Vermilion is still very interested in working with the administration and the council on a plan. So those were the comments that I had to make. So if y'all are interested, we're certainly interested as well. Thank you.
Next speaker, Jeremiah Sepple, followed by the final speaker, Karen Hale.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate your service. Nanette, thank you so much for putting this together. Mayor, thank you for allowing all this to happen. And all you guys on the council, we really, really appreciate your ear and your service. And thank you so much. I can't from the bottom of my heart. I'm also with the Dredge the Vermilion organization, and I'm also live on the Vermilion. I've lived on the Vermilion for 25 years, and have watched this every day, and anecdotally have a kind of a feel for the rain versus the rise of the river, and clearly it's getting worse. And it's worse, much worse now than it was 4 years ago when we started out trying to improve this problem. An old farmer, a rice farmer, told me once before that the rule of thumb with drainage is you start downstream and work your way up. Now, that's basic common sense, and Mike Walden, who's the professor of hydraulics, will say the same thing. It's just common sense. You start downstream and work your way up. If you start upstream and work your way down, you're creating flooding, and that's pretty much what we're doing. As Mr. Gilbo said, and also Mr. Hammock said, that we are actually exacerbating the problem with the solutions that we've taken. So I want to kind of make this a little simpler with defining some words. There's drainage and there's flooding, and those are two different things. And if you solve drainage in one area by getting water to another area faster in more volume, and you haven't solved that problem first, you are actually creating flooding, and that's what we're doing. You got to start downstream and work your way up. Downstream is Cypress Island, and there's a quick solution to that. That could be done in 1 week. The river certainly needs to be dredged in the hot spots, Nanette, like you pointed out about a year ago when you asked for $5 million for the hot spots. Well, where's that money? That could be done. See, those two things, the pumps, Cypress Island, the hot spots, you're only talking about a few $1 million, and that's 4 feet. That's 4 feet. That would have saved FEMA $300 million. That would have saved them a year ago $100 million. It makes no financial sense. So anyway, what we have is in this parish, what we have in any parish when it's populated, what happens is the high grounds are populated first. That's where the development's going to happen. And over a period of 100 years, what's left is lowlands. Now you got a conflict where you are today. You got a mindset. We have a mindset. We've always had a mindset of economic development. And yes, we want economic development. We're at a point now where the economic development that we're doing is counterproductive. And we got to change our mindset. We got to think of the unintended consequences when you, Ms. Monique, when you spend money to expand Cooley-Ildacon, you put water in my house. And 100 other people on the river. Now, we can talk about that later, but that's what's happening, and we need to think about the unintended consequences, and we need people for the city and the parish and the mayor's office that can help us do it. We're not getting the help. Thank you very much.
Final speaker, Karen Hale.
Yeah. Miss, can you give us a minute, please? Ms. Duncan?
Yeah. Monique, I want to thank you for all the work you've done and the people that you've helped in my district. Because cleaning Cooley-Ildacon was a project for 30, 40, 50 years. While I wanted to start downstream, I agree. We have to go at the bottom and go up. But meantime, when you get hundreds and hundreds of requests to please come clean Cooley-Ildacon because there was money that was promised 30 years ago to clean Ildacon, we can't be in this room pointing fingers. She's got a job to do. She's doing her job. We have to start at the bottom and go up. But if we, as council members that have areas north of I-10, are we supposed to tell our people we're not touching any drainage, we're not going to clean anything until the Corps or the feds, because this is not an LCG problem going downstream. No, we don't have the money. If we had the money, or we want to get together as investors and big property owners and local businessmen to help fix the issue faster, then we all have to come to the table and figure out how do we do it collectively. Because if you don't do that, we're going to have this meeting here till 10 o'clock at night, and you can put all the experts you want in here. It comes down to money, and it comes down to how do we get it. The drainage millage we have, without a doubt, does not provide enough to do any of the things that we're talking. So we do need help from the Corps. Clay Higgins and I have talked, a bunch of us have talked to his office. He's doing what he can do. It is what it is. It's not going to get any better, but if we want to make it better, then we have to start putting all of our heads together, investors, people that live in this community, and figure out, hey, let's stop pointing the finger because they do need work upstream. It should have started at the bottom and going all the way up. But at the end of the day, we can't just sit back and say, well, we're going to start all over and go at the bottom. Well, we're waiting on the feds and them to come to the bottom now, and we ain't getting anything. Like Mr. Gilbo said, we have all the plans, we have everything. What is the one thing we do not have in this room and just parish-wide? We don't have the money. The key word is we don't have the money. Because if we had the money, Mr. Gilroy, would you start downstream and go up today? You know, so I don't necessarily I agree with everything that's being said. It has to start downstream and has to go up. I do. And we're going to talk about it for many more times, and we have all the plans. Until the money comes across the table, AKA Fed, or this community and this parish comes together as one, or we partner with the other parishes to form a 3-parish-wide millage, like Tesh Vermilion, and address downstream going up. Until those conversations start happening, if we really want to be honest, do you think we're going to have the money locally to do it? No. And we know we ain't getting the money federally right now. I was in the meeting when they did Dredge of Vermilion. The money that it would have cost to dredge of Vermilion spot dredge, we had all of those meetings. You know, I want to help fix the problem just as much as you do. But I don't want to blame Miss Melanie here, the Katie. I mean, the MPO, it's her fault because your house flooded. I mean, she's got a job to do. That's a little wrong, in my opinion, to go after her when she's doing what she can do. And thanks to her, roads have gotten done in my district, and thanks to her, I've had some coulee improvement. But even though the coulee improvement she's done in my district, people are still flooding because it's doing exactly what the gentleman in the back said, hitting the bottom and it's coming right back up. We know the answer to fix the problem. Start downstream, go up, find the money, come together as a community, as one, and figure out what do we want to invest in, or do we want to just sit back and wait for it to come from Washington, D.C. That's where it's going to happen. That's it. So I'm open to meet at any meeting, have any consultant visit, and go to any meeting y'all want to do locally to figure out how do we do it on a local level. But if you're waiting for the feds to come and drop the miracle money, and we're going to get it done today, tomorrow, it's not going to happen.
Why don't one of you guys take the leadership to do that?
Okay, hold on, please. Hold on. It's getting out of hand now. We're here to have a discussion, and let's not get out of hand. I have a few more council members who want to speak, and I hope that's not bringing it into a shouting match.
And Mr. Chair, you do have one speaker.
Yes, ma'am. Come on and speak before we go to the next speaker.
Miss Karen
Yes,
Hale.
What I heard you say is it's all right to do Ildacon if it floods my house. That's what I heard. No. So my question on Ildacon, and I've asked for over a year, is where is the study? Everybody's talked about you have to do a study for everything. Where's the study that shows the impact of the Ildacon project on the Vermilion River? I have yet to see that, and I have actually been reprimanded by Public Works. Now, this was the previous Public Works. And so I did some research on it, and there was a project called Marais de Cons, and the Fenstermaker Group did mitigation measures to offset the floodway development along the Coulee-Ildacon. And one of the things they said in there was that the impacts of the development were mitigated by using storage areas or retention ponds. When I look back at the information that APC had when they originally submitted for the enlargement of Coulee-Ildacon, there were supposed to be these huge detention ponds, and I've been up there and looked, and I can't find them. So my question is, where's the study and where's the detention ponds?
Thank you. Mr. Andy Nakin?
There's no doubt that the drainage improvements have a great impact on the Vermilion. And we can collect all the money in the world to try to improve the Vermilion. And until we get cooperation from the federal government and the Corps and permitting, it'll never happen. And that's the biggest thing, is not just the money, but the permitting. And Ms. Boulay has been working on that a long time, trying to get things done, I know. So it's going to take a major effort from everybody to get this done. And I agree that it needs to be started at the bottom and work its way up. In the meantime, there are things that are being done by Public Works that are a necessity, and they're going to do the best they can, and I sure hope we can address those hot spots. I'd love to see that happen, but we got to get back to permitting, and Monique knows how important that is. She's been trying to get that done for quite a while now. I say we support the MPO in their efforts and try to get a collective voice through her to the federal government, to our representatives, to try to get this permitting pushed through. It's got to get done. It's got to get done somehow. Thank you.
Mr. Gilbo?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just real brief. When I look at the situation that we're confronted with right now, it seems like we have a ball team, a good ball team. We've got Miss Monique, we have our drain folks, we have LCJ, we've got us up here, all willing to do what we've got to do. The problem I see is we don't have a good manager right now, someone to lead us to that next level, to get those projects on the river completed. No one is suggesting that we stop all the drain improvements that we're doing across the parish. No one is suggesting that at all, certainly not I. But the elephant in this room is that Vermilion River. And at some point, we need a leader that's going to take us to that trough to get the funds needed to do this project. The whole application process that Ms. Monique spoke to, I appreciate the difficulties. And at some point, you would think we could simplify that process. If we are really concerned about the citizens and delivering services to the citizens, why are we making it so difficult for us to get the services, the monies, to do the projects that we need to do? Simplify the process, folks. To me, it's a no-brainer, but I know when you're dealing with Washington, it's another thing. The other question I have is, I don't understand, and again, it goes back to my concept of ball team, but no manager. Why are we having to make the calls to ask that they open up a bridge or open up another gate? Where's the leadership? Now, these, as I appreciate it, are federal structures, are controlled by the feds. Why aren't they making these calls? Why do we have to get on the phone and make that phone call and make that request? Might be something I'm not understanding. But if it's within my jurisdiction, I should have that oversight, I should have that information, and I should be able to move and make that call, certainly with the urging of the citizens. So where's the leadership? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Hebert?
Thank you, Chairman. First, Veronica, I'm going to request, Ms. Karen and I have both requested that information about the surveys, the studies for Ildacon, and we still haven't received it. So I'm asking you for your help in getting those. If I need to submit a public records request to get them, I'm happy to do so. I know that she and I have both submitted that request 2 or 3 times each, so I'd like to ask to get those as soon as possible. And then I know that we have, and I believe we're all kind of touching on the subject, and I know that my mayor is up next to talk, so kind of perfect timing that he's right behind me, is Councilwoman Cook led the charge on allocating $5 million for while we were waiting on this study to be done, to at least have it earmarked, because that was the best estimate that Congressman Higgins' office gave us, is for hotspot at minimum for dredging. Can you explain your plans? I know you're going through all the budgets right now this week, and you've been meeting with them, and you've asked them to go ahead and already take 20% cuts except for fire, police, and I think Public Works, correct me if I'm wrong though, and that's one of the highest cuts you've had that I've seen since I've been on the council, so kudos to you on that. But I'm hoping that you can address what needs to be done for us to move forward. We're all saying it, so maybe you can address that next, please.
Sure, thank you. And so the $5 million, was, I think, a very proactive move by the previous City-Parish Council. We have several members that served on the council in the previous administration, as you alluded to, working in conjunction with Congressman Higgins. That was before the study that was released affecting the Vermilion, which kind of was disappointing, to say the least. The end result, and that's the only word I have for it. I think there's many members here that would say it's disappointing. I have some questions on that study. I think you guys probably have some questions too, so hopefully we get those questions answered, and maybe we would get a different outcome. So I'd like to see us continue to stay focused on whatever our responsibility is on a local side to match whatever it is we need to match. So kudos to you again. Another good discussion. Did I answer your question? Can I go into my comments? I don't want to dig into yours in your time.
No, not really. I guess my question was, next steps, do we need to do an ordinance to move forward to hotspot dredge the areas?
Okay, so if you're talking about dredging the Vermilion, we got Councilman Gilbo pointed to that. And I wish Gordon, is Gordon here? No, I know Harold, but he got tired of listening. That's okay. We're going to record it for you. I asked Gordon at a Dredge the Vermilion meeting, I said, well, if I'm elected, what if I just doggone order the Public Works Director to go and dredge the Vermilion? What's my consequences? And they're severe. So we're not doing that.
There's a what, I'm sorry?
It's severe, very severe federal consequences that, weigh out your options. You don't want to do that. Sometimes you can ask for forgiveness. That's not an area you want to do that. And the reason why I looked for Gordon, because he sounded off 2 or 3 federal acts that I was not aware of. So that's okay. All right. So we know, cross that option out. But I think, me being a layperson, not a hydrologist or a civil engineer, we got a lot of smart people in the room. I like the idea. The gentleman that gave the plumbing analogy, that I couldn't describe it any better than what you described it. It makes sense to me. You're putting water into a bowl, and you can only put so much water in a bowl. So if there's something blocking the capacity, get it out. You have experience with it, right? Yeah, it's a little bit. Okay, there you go. We can bring you back. So this is my thought on that. One notion, and correct me if I'm wrong, experts, but the whole point of dredging the Vermilion is to lower or to increase capacity, but to lower the levels in our watershed. So to me, again, being a lay person, I would say the dredging Vermilion would work, and we're going to continue to fight with that. We're going to continue to work with both councils and our federal delegation. Our congressman's office has worked tirelessly to get funding, to remove the red tape, to do what we have to do that. So I appreciate that. It's taking a long time. It's frustrating. I share Councilman Gilbo's frustration, everybody's frustration in this room. I sincerely do that. So we have 2 options now. We can continue to complain about it and do nothing, which you guys are not, and I appreciate that. Or we can try to control what we can control. One area that I feel like we can control is how can we, outside of dredging the Vermilion, since we're having hiccups with that, how else can we lower the levels of our watershed? I'll tell you right now, one of our projects with LWI, and Monique is helping us, thank you, APC, is to, it's the swamp out on the cyber swamp, right? Yeah. We have a major detention pond effort that would take water levels off of the Vermilion River, which would have to the same effect of dredging. Now, that's what I'm told. We got to study it to figure that out. But that's one of many examples. We heard, and Chad and I talk about this all the time. He was up here earlier, our Director of Public Works. What about inline detention? What about inline detention on our coulees? What about inline detention on our laterals to our coulees? What about inline detention on the Vermilion River in laterals and coulees? I don't know. But I know I'm not just going to sit here and say, well, we can't dredge the Vermilion because the study said it wasn't going to work, and therefore we're just going to sit and pout and not do anything. These guys and gals aren't sitting down doing nothing. So another note I'd like to point out. I understand this is a lot of passion. Monique understands that too. She has thick skin, so I don't think you took personal what Mr. Supple said. But there's a lot of people that share in Dredge Vermilion's initiative, their goals, but also their frustrations. I know I do. And I appreciate the work of APC, And I dang sure appreciate the work of Dredge Vermillion, and I'm looking forward to our Public Works Director and our Drainage Director and myself meeting with you guys soon. I'm in contact with several of your members, and we've been a little busy with COVID, but that's dying down. That's good. But we have never lost focus on the top priority in this parish, which is drainage. So I just want us to get out of this finger-pointing mentality as well. And I appreciate the words that Councilman Nakhan said too. But I also appreciate what the presentations alluded to as well. Doing good here may do bad there. Why don't we do good in both places? Surely we can. We put 3 men on the moon in 1969. Surely we can. Surely we can. We know water rolls downhill. We know that certain bodies of water can only hold so much capacity. All good points here today. Let's just build on the positives and not get so tied into pointing fingers. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Kevin Nakhan?
Yes, in regards to the project Marita Khan, when I first took office, council member at the time, Purvis Morrison, had showed me there was an actual big old plan, and it was around the Scott area, and it looked good. It was going to be a real big retention off of Cooley, the Khan. They were going to maybe develop some houses, put a track, maybe some RV stuff. You could see it off I-10. I'll look for the plan for you. I know it was there. From what I gather, maybe Monique could help me out with that project. From what I gathered, a lot of the property owners within that area didn't want to sell us the property, I guess, or let us utilize the property for the retention. Right.
We can work together on this.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that, but yes, ma'am. One of the things that I was fighting for with the UDC change was, and I said it at one of the previous council members, we cannot continue to develop Lafayette or the unincorporated area and expect the drainage. I'm in the medical field. You can't put all of it going in the same vein. You know, you have to be smart enough. What I thought would be a good solution in the future is if you're going to develop, stop developing so many lots and make that developer after, you know, he won't have the capability of selling as many lots, but he would have to require some type of big retention within that development and actually hold the rainwater in that development and let the regular water in our drainage system go down, then slowly release that. But I definitely think if the parish had money, I'd like to see the parish buy pockets of land within the incorporated areas along the Cooley. No, I know it was in the plan. We've had a study, we had a plan. It probably came down to money because in order to do that, you got to acquire the land along those coulees. So you got to go to the, it's not that easy. They got people that, it's not that easy. Ma'am, okay. I got the floor.
We don't want this to get out of hand. Okay, Ms. Cook was nice enough to bring this on the agenda, so let's respect the conversation. Okay, Mr. Nakhan has the floor.
I'm just simply trying to let you know that at the end of the day, I know what was told to you, I know what was proposed, but Monique can tell you, it comes down to landowner cooperating, comes down with the money. You know, so I still believe, like the mayor president, and what you do believe too, is that we should have some spot retention ponds along these main channels that would allow the water to hold up in there, then let the Vermilion do its thing and then slowly release it. I don't agree that right now it's all coming down to you. I don't think it's right. I'm not happy that you flooded. I don't want nobody to flood. But to fix the problem, we do need retention ponds up north and slowly capture that water as it comes down. And that's what I think in the UDC would definitely make a change. And Corey, Marita Khan, I wish it would have went through. And I don't have all the information, but I did see the map, and it was supposed to do what you're talking about. It all comes down to funding. So.
Okay, if anyone has a question for any councilman, just to move this meeting along, give them a call, email them or whatever. We need to move this meeting along. Again, if you have a question for any council member, please contact them. Ms. Cook, you have the floor.
I'm sorry, I have one more thing to say. We've talked about the $5 million that's been put aside in a line item for dredging the Vermilion. Want to have administration, as in the mayor, understand. Mayor, President, I just want to make sure that that $5 million is still a line item in the budget. We had gotten approval from the Corps. They were not going to pay for that, for the spot dredging, but they would allow us to do it. And so that was put forward to the administration, and we had that conversation with Public Works and with Clay Higgins' office. So, now I think it's time for all of us on board here to understand that and figure out how we can actually, look at the spot dredging to make sure that it makes a difference before we spend that money. But if it does, it's worth looking at again. So we do have the option if we can determine that it is something that would benefit the houses on the river. There was 2 different studies about whether that would even help or not, but I feel like before that money goes somewhere else, some other drainage project, I want to make sure that it's still a line item for river dredging or spot dredging, whatever we want to call it. But I do think it could provide some relief where those areas where it's 2-3 feet deep and it should be 9 feet. I'm not an engineer, but to me that makes sense. You dig that hole deeper. So I don't know, how we get that across to, I mean, the Corps is not, they're not on board to do it. We got such pushback from Vermilion-Parish. They were nervous about a full dredge. So I'm not sure if they, where they are on helping us with a spot dredge, but I feel like we need to push that again, but because we are able to, we can be permitted for that. Mark Wingate already said, he doesn't know if it's a good project. He doesn't, think it, he's not sure about it, but he said, look, if y'all want to move forward with it, we could probably help you with some of those permits. So, we do have that option. It's just a matter of, I guess, Public Works looking at it again for us to all figure out what impact it would have, and is that money better spent doing detention ponds in, north of Vermilion to slow the water down, or, but again, that $5 million is earmarked for that, and I feel like I definitely think we need to look at it, closer in terms of how we can make something work with that.
Sir, Mr. Mayor, hold on, sir. We have council members that have something to say.
Oh, there's a question.
No,
I'm sorry.
You have a question? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead. Okay.
You want me to answer?
Yes, please.
Okay. So there is an item on it's city council, right? City agenda tonight?
Yes.
Okay, so there is an item on the agenda tonight to place that line item back into the general fund due to the economic situation we're in, the fiscal situation we're in, to help manage that general fund. I would say this. I know our CFO can talk about finances and bonding capacity should that need arise, or excuse me, the needs there. Should that be a feasible action? Right now, because of the fiscal situation we're in, we don't have many choices. We can always come back once we get permission to actually get into the river. And I'm going to tell you, no one wants to dredge it more than I do. No one wants to fix drainage more than I do. I talk about it every single day. I busted up Public Works, with your permission, thank you, to focus on drainage. So trust me, and I appreciate all your work too, Nanette. You're in my district as well. You represent my district in the city. I know how hard you work, and I appreciate that. We all do. We all appreciate everybody. My recommendation would be to approve the item that we're presenting to you purely to help save the general fund. As you guys know, the previous City-Parish Council, and before COVID, I get it, budgeted us at an $18 million deficit. That means we spent $18 million more than we had coming in. Facts, it's okay, so now we have to address that with the anticipated revenue shortfall due to the economic emergency. We're looking at an additional $10 million out of that general fund. So that's $28 million. Now, so if we continue spending habits, it's not going to be too good. But that's why we're making the adjustments we made in the 401 file. We looked at 441 today with the bonding capacity, 101, all these numbers thrown at us. But bottom line is the general fund, our savings account, is not in a healthy situation if we continue to do the things that we're doing from a spending standpoint. But we'll present it. If dredging was imminent, meaning we had permission, all forces go, then I say absolutely. I wouldn't even let that thing go I wouldn't let that proposal go on the budget. But we have to focus on everything. And right now, the general fund is not in a good situation. But Lori, can you talk about let's say the Corps says we can dredge tomorrow, what will we do? Bonding.
Yes, sir. Also on the agenda tonight will be some bonds for the city. It's some city refunding bonds, which will provide some savings opportunity, but also some new money bonds. When we go to the bond market, our ability to borrow money is very much affected by our city general fund balance. So that's why we thought it was more important to move that $5 million back to the city general fund balance. Then when you go to the bond market, you'll be able to achieve a better rating and borrow that money through bonds. So as we enter into the budget process, you can reprioritize however your priorities fit within the existing bond money. So if that is more of a priority than other things in the bond money, you'll certainly be able to stick that back into the budget. It's not something that we wanted to do. It was just a result of the COVID and the decrease in sales taxes.
But Councilwoman, let not your heart be troubled, because I'm with you on this fight, okay? If we had a green light again tomorrow to say, hey, look, go give us your match, if it was 10 million, and as much as I'm beating the drum to save our savings account, our general fund, I would be advocating to spend 10 to make our match. So I take comfort in that. I know this is on the city agenda, guys, and I appreciate y'all's patience, but it's relevant to the discussion. I take comfort in knowing that there are other opportunities to meet our match at the time, should we have that, based on what Lori basically just said. So thank you.
Mr. Rubin?
I just want to say, am I home? I just want to say, I feel all of y'all pain. Everyone who's talking about their house flooded, I feel your pain. In 2016, I had to get back and forth to my house for 2 weeks in a canoe. So I know what you're going through. I would like a solution right now also. I've been working tirelessly, working with the different administration, and as Mr. Nakan said, the problem is the money. We can't wave a magic wand right now. Trust me. If I could, my house would be this high up off the ground. We're working on some different things to try to get this fund to alleviate this problem. I feel your frustration. I'm frustrated also, and I'm on the council. Just bear with us and understand what we're going through. And that's all I can ask you guys. Just understand our pains right now. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Okay, ordinance for final adoption. This is a public hearing, and blue sheets are available for anyone wishing to address the council. The 5-minute rule does apply. Cindy, please read item number 6.
Joint Ordinance 52, 2020, a joint ordinance of the Lafayette City Council and the Lafayette Parish Council, amending the fiscal year 1920 operating budget of the Lafayette City-Parish Consolidated Government by authorizing the transfer of $200,000 in Community Development Block Grant CDBG funds within the Community Development Department to the Housing Loan Program.
I need a motion and a second from the city council.
So moved.
First by Mr. Andy Nakane and second by Ms. Liz Hebert.
I need a motion from the parish council. Motion by Councilman Gilbo, second by Councilman Carlson.
Okay, Ms. Hebert?
If I can call up the Community Development Director. I'm hoping you can give us a breakdown. I know we had a pretty lengthy discussion. I'm hoping it doesn't have to be that lengthy tonight on this topic. Can you give everyone watching more information on what this money is being funded, what it's going to fund, and what the purpose of these funds are? And introduce yourself too, please.
Director.
Mm-hmm.
So this is $200,000 on what we could use for public service. That year, it was not waived, and we spent our cap on our Taylor Center. And so this can only be used for fund balance. So we're using it for our first-time home buyers who we still make loans to low and moderate income people who are buying homes. This is loans that is written off. They don't have to pay it back. And then it's also used in our housing rehab when we give out up to $30,000 for that rehab. If that's not enough money, then there's another loan up to $20,000 that we can give them that can be paid back. So that account, there's only enough money to do 2 more first-time home buyers. That account is almost empty. So this money, since it can only be used for that, will be transferred in there. Now, I know you asked for an update on the other thing that we talked about. We received 4 applications back based on the highest priority, which was rental-based tenant assistance and utilities. We scored them today. We have not released the results of our scoring, but we have $200,000 in our home fund that I've identified, and we have about $60,000 in our CDBG that I've identified that we're going to address those issues through the applications that we have. So we're really close to being able to have our public comment and bring an ordinance before the council. But that is separate money from this money.
Correct. So what I was hoping to talk to you about, we were supposed to try and set a meeting, weren't able to make it work, is are the funds that we're voting on right now for this, can those funds, because while it's a great program, and I'm not saying it's not a great program, it certainly is, but in the times that we're in, people are more focused on not being kicked out of their home or paying their utilities rather than buying their first home. I think we can all agree on that. Can these funds be used for utility assistance or any of the other 2 programs that we discussed? That's what I was hoping to find out.
I think the council can vote not to do this, but by HUD rules, we'll have to go back to public comment and get the comments from the people where they think the funds should be directed and start the process over and then come back again.
Okay. I'd like to. Councilman Cook,
That's my understanding.
Hold on.
Well, yeah, so.
But these 200,000, it cannot be used for public service at all because in 2018, that cap was met. The cap was waived for 2019 and 2020, but it only can be used for COVID-related issues. These funds are from 2018, so they cannot be used for any of these issues.
All right. Okay, that's all I have for right now. Thank you.
Ms. Cook.
Okay, you're talking about the 15% cap. I thought that we discussed that last time, that there was no.
It's waived for 2019, 2020. These funds are fund balance from 2018.
Okay. Okay, so in the total balance in this home loan account is 260, is that what I'm getting from you? The money that we're talking about putting into these programs, you're talking you had about 260,000?
Oh, okay, you're talking about there are some projects that we are looking at that have not been cleared that we may be able to push off, but we have a little over 200. I'm just leery of robbing Peter to pay Paul. These are not new funds. These are funds that are allocated who have not come through council. But it's a little over 200 in the home, and there's 60 in the CDBG that we can allocate toward these things that does not have the 15% cap.
So 60,000 is what we have for that?
In the CDBG.
Okay. And is this the Habitat project?
No.
This is, because wasn't there one that was?
No, I mistakenly just was trying to give examples and mentioned Habitat.
Okay.
In trying to describe how we did that.
So this money was never tied to Habitat at all? I mean, isn't that their program?
I don't want to really get into who we're robbing to reallocate those type of issues. And we can have a conversation outside of this.
Okay. Say who? Yeah, maybe so. Yeah.
And again, the process, because of what the highest priority was from all the public comments that we heard here, we solicit all of the 33 applications to send in full applications based on how they could address those needs. And we have 4 applications that we're addressing, that we're scoring, that we'll be able to address those needs.
Let me ask you, if we were to defer this, how much are we throwing this off course?
If you would defer,
If
which
we were
one?
to defer it tonight and give us a little more time to kind of digest and,
Defer the 200,000 here?
no, defer this ordinance. Basically come back and vote on it, just not vote on it tonight.
Right, this ordinance for 200,000 here?
Yeah.
We can't use those funds toward this anyway, it's 2018. We can't use it for anything public service, because that cap was reached in 2018. The cap was not waived to 2019 and 2020.
So these are not even eligible.
So these funds cannot be used regardless.
Okay. So okay, I'm not sure if deferring would do anything then. If we
No,
can't-
we will.
If we can't do anything with
Yeah,
them.
we would not be able to use those for anything
Can't use them for rental
outside of
assistance,
housing.
for any of that other stuff that we talked about the last time? No. Okay. But the 60,000 is
No.
different money, but that's something that
No,
possibly.
this 200 is different
Right.
from the other 200 that we have allocated toward that. So this is something
Totally
totally
different.
separate.
Okay.
So we do have 200 that we've identified and 60 outside of this. This is just 2018 that we're moving to our first-time home
Okay,
buyers.
so we're still talking about the other 260 using for what we're trying to use it
Yes,
for? Okay. all right.
absolutely.
So that's,
This
so
is
this is
completely
totally separate. Okay, all right. So I'm sorry, I understand better now.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any more council discussion? Okay, I see none. Ms. Williams, public comments?
No, sir.
Okay, let's vote from each council to adopt the ordinance.
We can't use these funds.
City District 3,
Yeah.
City District 3,
Yes.
City District 4,
Yes.
City District 5,
Yes.
City District 1,
Yes.
City District 2,
Yes.
Parish District 3,
Yes.
Parish District 4,
Yes.
Parish District 1, Parish District 2. The motion to adopt by the city parish is approved, and the motion to adopt by the parish council is approved.
Please read 7, please.
Joint Ordinance 54, 2020, a joint ordinance of the Lafayette City Council and the Lafayette Parish Council recognizing and ratifying the declaration and certification of a public emergency as stated in emergency ordinance number, Joint Ordinance 53, 2020, recognizing and ratifying the emergency appropriations authorized by the emergency ordinance number, Joint Ordinance 53, 2020, amending the fiscal year 1920 operating budget of the Lafayette City Parish Consolidated Government by increasing revenues in the amount of $852,935 in CDBG CV grant funds received from the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development and appropriating funds within the Community Development Department, recognizing, ratifying, and continuing the authority granted by the Lafayette Mayor President by emergency ordinance number, Joint Ordinance 53, 2020, to enter into any and all contracts necessary, incidental, convenient, or desirable to provide for the rapid disbursement of said CDBG CV grant funds to address the public emergency declared by emergency ordinance number, Joint Ordinance 53, 2020, in accordance with the terms of said grant, including but not limited to an intergovernmental agreement between Lafayette City Parish Consolidated Government and the Lafayette Economic Development Authority for the qualification of business applicants for distribution of CDBG CV grant funds for the purpose of creating and/or retaining jobs for low and moderate income individuals, and ratifying all contracts or obligations of the Lafayette City Parish Consolidated Government enter into pursuant to the authority granted by the Lafayette Mayor President by emergency ordinance number, Joint Ordinance 53, 2020.
I need a motion and second from City Council.
Need a motion and second. Oh, go ahead.
Motion by Ms. Lynette Cook and second by Ms. Liz Abear.
All right, need a motion and second from Parish Council. Motion by Councilman Carlson, second by Councilman Brian Taylor.
Council discussion, Mr. Lazar.
I'm not going to rehash the discussion that we had 2 weeks ago. I think made my position perfectly clear. But I have a question, though. Mayor President. Okay. Do we anticipate getting any additional funds under the CARES Act?
Ooh, I tell you this, we're fighting vigorously to get extra funding under the CARES Act, namely through the state. Now, I want to make sure we're on the same topic, though. So through, are you talking CDBG funds or
Yes.
CARES? Okay, so CDBG is different.
Well, I'm saying, I'm using the term synonymously.
I call it, when you say CARES, it triggered,
Yeah.
it triggered the fight in me, Councilman. I was ready. You know, it's like a knee-jerk reaction right now, fighting with the state to get local funding, but that's okay. I digress. So we do have our director back there. It is our anticipation to, and I think he's touched on it earlier, to get some of the fundings that we talked about at the last meeting. I know that, and Director Conway, if you could come up, please. I think this is important. So it's my understanding, this is additional funding than what we talked about last council meeting with the 200,000, is that correct?
The 200,000 that I found?
Yes, or this is the 200?
Not this one just passed.
Oh, no, it's not.
No, sir.
We on number 7.
It's not.
I apologize. My apologies.
It's not.
I was on item 6 and we're on item 7,
Okay,
so I apologize.
I'm not, yeah.
Still CDBG though, yes.
Yeah, I'm not speaking about funds that are currently in the budget.
Okay.
I'm talking about if we anticipate receiving any additional funds in the tune of or in the line of the $852,000 that we got. I'm not saying amount-wise. I'm just saying, do we anticipate receiving any additional?
Not in this regard, no, sir.
Not in
I
this
don't-
regard?
And I'm answering the question you're asking me, do I anticipate?
Yeah.
No, I would love for it. I think everybody on the council would like more additional money in this regard, but no, sir, I don't anticipate it.
I was just curious because
Good question.
if by chance we do, I would sincerely hope that we would take the opportunity to attempt to address some of the other needs that were identified when we had this long, heated discussion 2 weeks ago. I'd like to see us diversify our portfolio somewhat. There are some other needs. Certainly, the business needs are important, and like I say, I think we all agree on that. So I just wish we would consider the possibility of addressing some of those other needs should we receive the additional funds.
So, Council, I'll even go a step further and say, not only do I agree with you, because it was about prioritization and timeliness, but I would join the fight with you, and we can, I know I can't do a joint ordinance with you, but I'll introduce it, or you can introduce it, and I'll support it. But there is additional CDBG funding that we're seeking. That's the kind of the discussion we were talking about last council meeting. So, and I know Director Conway's doing a good job fighting for that. So I think we probably would be able to satisfy the intent of your question with the additional funding. It's just not this specific. So I was just answering the question that you asked. But again, I will join in your position that we've already addressed with the micrograms, we already addressed the business need. Let's not forget about the other needs. I think is the spirit of your question. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Okay, any more council discussion? I see none. Ms. Williams, any public comments?
No, sir.
Okay, I need to call from the vote from each council to adopt the ordinance.
City District 4?
Yes.
City District 5?
Yes.
City District 1?
Yes.
City District 2?
Yes.
City District 3?
Yes.
Parish District 4?
Yes.
Parish District 1? Yes. Parish District 2?
Yes.
Parish District 3? Yes. The motion to adopt by the City Council is approved. The motion to adopt by the Parish Council is approved.
Introductory ordinance. I need a motion and a second to introduce in global items 8 through 12 from the City Council. Motion by Mr. Glenn Lazar, second by Mr. Andy Nakane.
Motion from the council, Parish Council. Motion by Councilman Gilbo, second by Councilman Carlson.
Okay, Cindy, please read item number 8.
Joint Ordinance 55, 2020, a joint ordinance of the Lafayette City Council and the Lafayette Parish Council amending the fiscal year 1920 operating budget of the Lafayette City Parish Consolidated Government to adjust amounts for risk management, uninsured loss reimbursements to actual. Joint Ordinance 56, 2020, a joint ordinance of the Lafayette City Council and the Lafayette Parish Council amending the fiscal year 1920 operating and capital budget of the Lafayette City Parish Consolidated Government to provide for adjustments of revenue and appropriation estimates. Joint Ordinance 57, 2020, a joint ordinance of the Lafayette City Council and the Lafayette Parish Council authorizing the Lafayette City Parish Consolidated Government to sell at public internet auction surplus miscellaneous movable property which are no longer needed for public purposes as per the attached list, internet auction. Joint Ordinance 58, 2020, a joint ordinance of the Lafayette City Council and the Lafayette Parish Council amending the fiscal year 1920 operating budget of the Lafayette City Parish Consolidated Government by decreasing anticipated revenue to actual revenue received from homeowner contributions associated with the PY 2016 Home Housing Rehabilitation Program carried out by the Community Development Department and transferring budgets to match actuals in order to facilitate grant closeout. Joint Ordinance 59, 2020, a joint ordinance of the Lafayette City Council and the Lafayette Parish Council amending the fiscal year 1920 operating budget of the Lafayette City Parish Consolidated Government by increasing revenues in the amount of $313,148.84 received from Willowbrook 2 Apartments Partnership and appropriating within the Community Development Department.
Is there any council discussion on the introductory ordinance? Any council discussion? See none. Ms. Williams, any public comments?
No, sir.
It's called from the vote from each council to introduce in global joint ordinance items 8 through 12.
City District 5?
Yes.
City District 1?
Yes.
City District 2?
Yes.
City District 3?
She's out.
City District 4?
Yes.
Parish District 1? Yes. Parish District 2?
Yes.
Parish District 3?
Yes.
Parish District 4?
Yes.
The motion to introduce by the City Council is approved. The motion to introduce by the Parish Council is approved.
I adjourn the joint meeting of the Parish Council meeting.
Adjourn the joint meeting and the city council meeting.
We will start the city
Yeah.
council meeting immediately following.
Okay.